This is going to be another episode of Thorin's Big Brains. For this one, I'm joined by Jensen Goh, who has coached a whole bunch of like EU/smaller teams that you would know of, but maybe you didn't know he coached them. And interestingly enough, also, as well as he actually has a Patreon where he does, if people ever saw the stuff I've bigged up in the past during Worlds, where he broke down like how the teams worked on the map and path and stuff, he does all that stuff on his Patreon. But he also did actually write a book recently, which I haven't finished reading, so I will decline a review at this point in time. But if it ends up being good, I'll tell you. It's, well, if I don't ever mention it, it's probably just not that great overall, but whatever, let's keep it polite like that. Unless he disses me or something, I'll just tell you it was total shit. So, no, it depends if it's actually good or not. But basically, he's also written actually a little book, which is like a mixture of like his story going through coaching and then also some like coaching principles and things like that. Obviously, people might know he was one of the few people, I've mentioned this in the past, who actually thought EDG could win 2021 World. So I have a lot of time for anyone who has that worldview, because everyone else was just lazy and went, damn one, probably just can't ever lose to anyone ever. Can I have my present now? Like, fucking hell, whatever. They almost lost to T1 that year, you fucking fools. And also, let's be real, if you are like an LPL fan, to see the damn one dynasty ruined by Khan. It's too delicious. If you just love the LPL like I do, and you have to go through all those hard years, and spoiler, you still do, even if you like the LPL, because every bloody year, those of us who watch it tell you they're going to be amazing. And then I'm not even joking. In past years, they would each take turns for one top team to just be ill, secretly behind the scenes for no reason. In the modern day, they just all get ill, apparently. It's ridiculous. Like, the whole thing, it's so mad how bad the luck has been of some of the LPL teams these years. Even though, boys, yeah, they have won a whole bunch of these worlds the last few times. It could have been even better. So as usual, I'm going to start every LPL episode. Obviously, we've got Keire here. People might know from this show a long time ago when he was just an image from a comic book that I enjoy. And now, obviously, thanks to Rich, he has a camera. So what? And still gets to just bizarrely interact with like legendary goated players who are all just like, who is he again? Like, so he works for you or something, Rich? No, just a guy I know. So why is he here then? So find out, whatever. So obviously what I always say at the beginning of every LPL episode is, unfortunately, people just refuse to watch this region. At this point, I don't even think it's about like the casters. I don't even know it's the time zone, dude, because see, some of these VODs are incredible. Like you don't have to, like, you can even know the result and you can go watch some of these like LNG bangers. It'll be an amazing game. Like at this point, if you don't watch, you just don't, for some bizarre reason, like this region league. Like, it can't be the way it plays because it's mega exciting. They've got probably the most defined stars in the world. The actual teams, which we're going to get into, this episode is going to be about the top LPL teams. You're going to find out. I know people do say this every year, but this is one of the years it is true. The LPL is so deep at the top right now. So deep. Like when you consider, you look at like LCK, there's a couple of really good teams. Maybe if that one gets their shit together, there'll be 3. LPL again is like 2 or 3 teams that can win the title, a couple of others that be insane dark horse. Like the actual Worlds qualifier this year is going to be amazing if people hold this sort of level, and especially if all the lineups power up. So let's just start there, Jensen. What's your vibe at the moment of the overall thing? Because normally I often say I'm normally actually very skeptical of the LPL off season. Like there's a lot of moves where, I mean, people might know the amounts of money is so high, and then the amount of like relationships you need to know of like between the player and the org, and then all the bad thing where they all like clearly secretly agree, like, let's join this team, no, I'm joining this team. Normally, the off season is actually pretty whack in LPL, I find. Like, you get like really good rosters just get crushed, then you get like a really good player, like ends up on a bad team. This actually seems like one of the best off seasons I've seen in ages, dude. All these teams, so many good lineups, so many like collections of the stars, instead of being spread out across like 5, 7, 8 teams, so many teams with like 3 really good players at least as corporate. What are your thoughts on this season, Jensen? Are you in a similar boat?
Yeah, I think definitely it's really interesting when we talked about like the top LPL teams. I'm like, wait, I'm looking at RNG. That's a very strong roster as well. They're currently in 10th place. I think there's a few pretenders up there due to the strength of schedule.
Sure.
But definitely, I'm looking at this. Is if you want to say who are the front runners in the LPL, you're basically looking at almost close to half the league to say that these are people who have the chance, who have the ability to do it. And I think that this off season, you really consolidated a lot of the strengths. There's only one player I felt that could have been on a better team. So hashtag free I won league. He's on World League at the moment.
Okay.
We can talk a little bit about the team that I think that he should be playing for later on when we get to them. But definitely the depth of talent, even if we look at BLG, this is the team that won the Demacia Cup, right? And they have Shun, they have Yakao and things like that. It's not to say that there's you don't have these super teams across the board, right? I think with the exception of Weibo Gaming. all of these teams, you have like 2 or 3 big names, and then 2 or 3 very strong supporting pieces that make sense in terms of how they support the stylistic idiosyncrasies of what makes these great players great.
Sure. What about you, Keire? Where are you at the moment at the top of the LPL? How do you think the parity is?
Well, I think like there's like the top like 5. What's really nice right now is like the top 5 are all kind of similar in like terms of like strength, where they're like all 4 of the players really make sense, and then there's just kind of sometimes like one random like guy that like doesn't make like any sense. So, and then when you kind of go like down a little bit more, you've then got like the stylized teams where it's like 3 people, but like all the 3 people are like the perfect pieces, and they're all playing towards ideally how they should all be playing. And then as you just kind of further down the stratosphere, for me right now, I would say like the depth of the good LPL teams is at about 9 right now. I think there's actually 9 defined like good LPL teams that have all got like pieces that make sense, that can all win and take games off of each other to like relatively different degrees of like win rates. I was super surprised with the off season. I think a lot of players actually way more players didn't make it out of LDL than I thought, and
right.
some actually went down. For example, the ADC Kepler is now back in LDL again, who was on like TT on TT and stuff. So, and there was also bench players that I thought would have came up this year by now. So there is still a lot of regional depth that I can see, but you know, a lot of the pieces moving around in the offseason really made move. I think the only team that was disappointing for me that walked away was RNG. I wasn't really the most impressed with RNG's offseason. I know the Ionis is that their mid laner can eventually be like a world beater, that he's like the guy like they're banking on possibly being. I didn't think that, but that view, the way they say it, that is going to be the replacement for Xiaohu. So we'll see if this will be a team that is a 2-3 year project along with Ming. You know what I mean? He's bringing through a new bunch of rookies.
You know what? Let's just do that then, Jensen. Since you referenced that to you, actually, they're not even that bad a team because you're going down to 10th place. Obviously, the name-wise, RNG wouldn't have been in my list of the top teams. But let's do them, actually, because it's an interesting segue. Then we'll get into all the famous teams everyone knows. Because on this team, like one angle that I did think of, one player that I was disappointed by was with this roster, which is people might know the whole story of the offseason was like what was going to happen to Xiaohu. And spoiler, he left. He's obviously over in the Weibo team now. But if you look at the rest of the squad, they've still kept a bunch of players that have been in the team previously and won MSI, etc. But the big disappointment to me was, if I'd have known what they were going to end up on, it's like at this point, I'm assuming Ming is just in that status that like Mako's in, where they're just going to be in that org forever. Like they're just not even seemingly considering leaving. They don't seem to almost care who their partner is. And at the moment, it's obviously touch and go if Ming will even be a full-time starter in this team. Like, will he play? Will he not? Are they going to bring the other guy in? That's one thing I do get a little bit disappointed by, because if people don't know, like, I do think that's a player where I know all the LPL heads have insane respect for Ming, whereas like people in the West only really know him from like the UZI lineups or whatever. They don't really, even in these modern day RNGs, it's all about Xiaohu's story or being at the top lane or whoever it was in the past, you know. So what do you think of this actual current roster? And do you have any thoughts on the fact that Ming's just like, no one knows? Is he gradually fading out the game? Could he have gone elsewhere? What do you think, Jensen?
I think that's a doubt thing, that it just comes down to hearsay and rumors about like RNG. They're having payment issues and all that kind of stuff as well, which probably bled into the off season as to why they weren't able to retain some players, why they weren't able to retain some coaching stuff, and whatever that's happening with Ming right now. I think that there's some issues happening internally within RNG. I cannot confirm any of those things because my sources are at best third hand when it comes to these type of things, right? But if we just were to look at a roster, right? This is a roster with Brief. This is a roster with Angel, Ming, and Gala, right? And Wei as the jungler. If you were to take this 1 year ago and say that this is the roster for RNG, you would probably say that this is a team that can contest for the World Championship, right? Because as we talked about before, these guys have been to MSI. They've won all these championships as well. So it's just that they started the season with this whole like, is Ming starting? Is Ming not starting? And I mean, this happened in the past as well when Uzi was playing with RNG and he would take the break for the first half of Spring Split, right? And it's not uncommon for some of these LPL teams to say that with how loaded our schedule is, when the Lunar New Year comes around, we're just going to take an extended break. We're going to feel more of the LDL players, and then once we reach the second half, then that's when we start to gear up for things.
Sure. By the way, in general, on this episode, we'll all just jump in whenever people have thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on RNG, Keire?
So I might be wrong here, but were you really surprised, Jensen, when they were still bringing in? I can't say the mid laner's name. I've never learned to pronounce it.
Tong Young. Yep.
Tong Young. They were still bringing in Tong Young when Angel was like on the team. Because I'm pretty sure it was against GDG. They brought him in the second game, even though they could have just fielded Angel twice. Like that surprised me a lot because like there's a lot of hype around Tong Young, but I think Angel is just a very good player. Like overall, I think he's very well stylized to, if this RNG wants to like punch upwards and start winning lots of games, I would always pick Angel. He's a lot more proven, you know a lot more of what he got. So I was kind of surprised with that. The other thing, big takeaway for this RNG is, I think this RNG, when the patch comes around, will get better because it'll be crit ADC power spikes and Gala will be able to play a lot more of the champion pool. Like Gala's like champions will become a lot more like usable, and he'll be like far less narrowed compared to like everyone else. So I actually think there could be some upside. The only thing I don't like is I think Breathe will probably suffer the most without like Xiaohu in terms of playing topside carries. Xiaohu famously able to enable both sides of the map very effectively, and also reportedly possibly was covering for a lot of waves problems that he had during last period. Can they do the same again? Will waves problems continue to appear? I'm not sure, but I think of everyone on RNG, I think brief singular carry performances will probably happen a lot less. I imagine the team becoming a lot more bot focused and lane centered.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely bound to happen, right? Like, there are a few of what we call these player coaches within the LPL. Ming is one of them. Doinb used to be the other very prolific one, where you see all these behind-the-scenes LPL content, and then they're there, they're coaching the team, they're telling them, they're encouraging the teammates, they're bringing them up and everything. And Ming is definitely such a player. But it's very difficult for me to really have a solid assessment of RNG, because this is the team where the boat isn't stable, right? You don't really know what's happening behind the scenes for them, and until... the way I think about it is that let's wait for things to stabilize a bit more. Let's wait for the whole Ming situation to pan out and flesh out. And then as we approach playoffs, it would have we have a better idea as to what's happening, because there just isn't enough information. Is Angel starting? Is Thorin starting because of disagreements with coaching staff? It's the same thing with Karsa and V5 last year, right? Why was it that Xiao Longbao was playing all of a sudden? Karsa beats JDG 2-0. That was the top team. And then all of a sudden, Karsa's bench, right? And then you hear the rumors it's because he had disagreements with the coaching staff and things like that. You can't really verify these style things, but when these style things happen, it makes it very difficult to tell what's happening, right? Because there's internal strife, there's internal drama that's probably happening. So until they sort those things out, and then you see how the cards fall, be it somebody's getting ousted from the team, was it the coaching staff who's coming out ahead? Is it Ming who's then has the biggest say or whatsoever? Then you have a better picture as to what the identity of the team is going to be like.
Yeah, the key thing I would say on the RNG one is, obviously, when you change out Xiaohu, you basically just lose the whole identity of the team, because as you guys have pointed out, like, he was like some amazing leadership figure, also because he played the other roles. Like, he had some fucking unique idea about how the map works, etc. Angel's a good player. People don't know he was on that Suning team that was pretty good a few years back, but certainly not a bad player. Quite frankly, probably underrated by Westerns because he doesn't have the same name value. But the point is, you were losing more than just a player. Like, actually, half the joke of Xiaohu in the last couple of years was when he would play mid, it wasn't even like the old mid. He wasn't just like smash the lane all the time. Like, he actually played a bit like Faker in the last few years. He would sort of cover for his teammates and help rookies, and it just enabled the team to win. He's one of those players I put in that like perks bucket of like, I don't care about like raw siesta, but I care about how they win the game and how they play the map, mate. Like there's a reason why those are the most compelling players with the stories to follow that go from team to team to team to team. So let's do it. Let's segue to the team that Xiaohu did go to, because as Jensen said, Western fans won't don't know this, but actually that's not just a team with good players. Like in theory, on paper, that is a super team. I know you're not going to know that, but obviously you'll remember Crisp was fucking pretty cracked when FPX won Worlds. The Shy, do I even need to say anymore? By the way, it's still amazing. It's just like, as usual, he still has times he hints. By the way, he actually hints him way less. We'll get into that. They have Zhao who can basically do both styles. He can play just a laner, or he can just beat. And by the way, he even fucking gapped Rookie this split. They have Keire, who admittedly, we'll get into that in a second. I notice bizarrely in the West always gets like shit on by everyone. Like everyone always makes out like he's crap. But spoiler, there's a reason he's been in like 5 of the best LPL teams ever or something at this point in time. Like he's always in those roster mixes. There's a reason he's there and other names aren't. So, and then obviously Light's the one you're not going to know if you're in the West, but he was a good player for sure. Like if you saw the old LNG, he was one of the players that was coming on like gradually growing in strength, and he's on the team anymore. But yeah, on paper, like this is a team where the Westerners maybe only know like the past year's lineups and stuff. I think this is one on paper where, again, what a good job this was in the off-season, Jensen. Like this is a team that could genuinely contend for the title, be it Worlds, this MSI. Remember, we're going to have 2 teams now. They could be in the mix for all this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always do this very cursed thing where in February I say that this team is going to win Worlds, and Weibo Gaming is currently my pick.
Oh, that's the one you're cursing, right? Okay.
I mean, I think that it's not on the same level where I was looking at V5 last year or FPX 2 years ago, where I feel that this team has something special to it, and this team has got all these things going for them. I think.
Wait a minute. When you did that in the past, the team you picked was V5. Because here's what's sad is I can see why. I'd like some different pieces, but obviously, if you know how that ended, that was so cursed. Like if you don't know, guys, they were actually like a top 2 LPL team most of the year, and at the end they did the classic move, which sadly is happening in Rookie a lot, which is that everything just going to shit in the last like 3 weeks so badly you don't even qualify for it. That's pretty good, because that's like, at least here's the thing, mate. I've picked top a lot, but at least they get to Worlds. Like that's brutal that you had V5, because that couldn't have gone worse. Keep going, go on.
This is a team that on paper I think that it makes a lot of sense, right? The way that the pieces stylistically come together. But I think that it's probably one of the big super team syndrome teams where I feel that the games that they're losing is probably because there's a few too many cooks in the kitchen at this point of time. Where you're looking at these players, there's probably a little bit of too many voices happening at the same time. But once again, this is all just conjecture, right? I haven't heard of voice comms or anything.
Sure.
But this is definitely a team that I feel that whenever they're playing, with the exception of the JDG series, they're always in the driver's seat, and they're always the one controlling the pace of the game. I just want to give special props to Keire, because the analogy I'm going to draw up here is that Keire is kind of like a Lionel Messi, right? At the most recent World Cup, where you're still going to get these amazing Keire moments from him, but like Lionel Messi, once in a while, where if you're thinking about the goal that France had, right, where he gets dispossessed all of a sudden, and if you just focus on that, he can look a little bit bad, right? When you look at some of these moments where he's playing a little bit too aggressively on these engages and he feels like he's hinting, but you have to realize that this guy has, I think, like what, six MVPs right now in the LPL. And this is a team that they fundamentally understand this is how you play the lane status of par, and this is how your jungler can then influence that accordingly. So I enjoy watching this team a lot, because there's a lot of things that I can watch this team and then say that this is how you replicate these certain ideas, and these are the ideas behind what they're doing to a certain extent. So that's the reason why I have them so highly. The one I would say the Achilles heel is probably actually going to be Light. Right, Light is a very solid AD carry. Don't get me wrong about that. And the way that he plays a lot of team fights and things like that, you would say that to use the concept of above or below par, right? He plays to par or above most of the time. It's just that whenever he has played in a lot of these previous playoff series, I feel that he might be a little bit of a choker. So he's somebody who is if I'm going to pick a reason as to why this team doesn't make the World Championship, it would be because Light chokes in the playoffs or during the World qualifying run.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on Weibo, Keire? Pick whatever angle you want.
I think Weibo are a bit of maybe a little bit of a paper tiger right now, because their 2 wins were really their 2 big wins were really unconvincing. It was against probably their biggest jewels in the crown is they beat TES in the first week, which was opening of LPL before Chinese New Year in spring as whatever, and then obviously they beat GDG. Now the way they beat GDG is the second game was sick. I'll give them that. That was very, very nice. Then the third game, I don't think Ruler running into your team and insta-killing himself 3 times is a recipe for a consistent way to win the game, because Ruler doesn't do that often, and they decided to do it 3 times consecutively. And when I watched that, I was just like, and they were like, GDG were massively ahead. I would like to say, though, Karsa is very, very sick. Right now, he is probably front runner for the best.
Just MVP or maybe, right?
Yeah, he is actually that good. Like, Karsa is fucking playing off the scales. He's actually been playing insane since that Weibo Cup that was played all the way back in the off-season. Like, some of the other guys, like the Shy, just didn't give a flying that cup, right? But Karsa was all over that shit, by the way. All those LDL junglers that were like playing against him, he was decimating them. He just handed every single one of them their arsehole. So I actually like the players on this team. I think this team will challenge to make Worlds. I just actually can't see them winning the LPL. Another little weird factor for me is, and Karsa doesn't always have this rep, but it has become more and more, particularly from his TES days into his V5 days, is where there's like a drop-off when it comes to playoffs. It's inexplicable.
Sure.
I don't know why, because when I look at Karsa, I think, well, his series prep needs to be like insane. Like if he gets to like download the enemy jungle and get lots of time, he would like, you know what I mean, wreck them. But it just doesn't happen. Karsa ends up playing worse somehow sometimes, and he can end up losing your key games and stuff. I think this team is pretty good. I like the bot lane. I think the bot lane actually play out their matchups pretty well. I agree with Jensen here. Light's a very just par ADC, quite consistent. I actually do think he's also maybe a little bit of a choker in like key situations, but like not like drastically, just maybe plays worse than his like regular period. So it's like a team that I think is mega interesting, and I would like keep my eye on. But my account of them right now is I don't actually think they're as strong as maybe their record shows. The Shy is an interesting thing. I know you were going to talk about them, Thorin. One highlight of this team is if you can win games when the Shy goes 0-21 across 3 games, you've probably got like a reasonably good style and understanding of how to win games. Because when he starts playing well, he still plays out like lane states and all that very well, but he over pushes, he gets greedy, he sometimes picks Nidalee for some strange reason. Like, the Shy is the Shy. I still think he's very enjoyable to watch. I wouldn't just remove him or replace him on a fancy, because when you're watching him, he still shows those like properties where he could just like beat anyone. You basically you can always just kind of see like the glimmers. That's why Dom and Keire always hype it up to like the fans when they're watching them, because there is that potential where it's just that game where like it doesn't matter what the other 4 people do, like the Shy ends it in like 15 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. I want to actually ask you, Jensen, what your thoughts were on the Karsa topics. As I say, it's one of the players. Look, the LPL is already the region where I feel like it's like fucking. When I watch the games, then I go and read like Western Reddit. I'm like, are you even watching the same one? But like this player, especially, dude, they hard flamed the fuck out for years in the West. Like they genuinely act that this guy's a bomb. Like I think part of it must be the ones who don't watch the LPL. He has been on a lot of the hyped LPL teams. He was obviously on RNG. It was supposed to win Worlds, and then he was obviously on the fucking top esports that was supposed to win Worlds, and then V5 we all told everyone was the best fucking LPL team. They didn't make it. Look, I get that, and I also agree with Keire, actually. To be fair, his problem is, like a lot of great junglers, to be fair, oftentimes it'll be the elimination series where he'll have a couple of bad games that'll look like screamers, and if you only saw that, you're going to go like, he was bad this split. But like, again, as you say, like he's like one of the best players in the whole LPL right now, and the amount of years he has been, remember, guys, he came from the LMS, like he's done like, like they had I'll give you a great line that they had about Kobe Bryant, right? If a lot of people know, he changed his like shirt number halfway through his career, roughly, right? And the goated line that people said was, if you actually just looked at his numbers in championships, it actually meant that he had 2 Hall of Fame careers, because each number could have gone in the Hall of Fame. Like each one had like 3 or 2 championships, like all these points. The joke with Karsa is, it's like that. He had like 2 Hall of Fame careers. He was already a bona fide legend for all the shit in the LMS, beating all those Korean teams 1 billion fucking times over every. And then he just came to the LPL and was in like the best teams, like I say, contenders for like half a decade now. Like the guy's mad cracked. It's just, I wonder what you think it is. Like what are people missing about this player? What's the biggest strength you'd describe to a Westerner, Jensen, about Karsa?
what people don't get about Karsa is he's a very idiosyncratic player, right? Like you have the way I used to frame it, there's three kind of ways you can play the jungle. You can play like Karsa, you can play like Kennen, or you can play like SOFM, right? SOFM is not necessary. I don't think he's not playing the LPL this year, but the way that Karsa plays is that he's very self-sacrificial for his team, right? And people will look at Marang and in the LEC and say, "Oh, this is all he's doing. He's just like ganking and camping all these lanes and stuff like that." But the difference between Marang and Karsa is that Marang is just simply picking up free kills, right? Is that people in the LEC, they do not know how to lane. They put themselves into these bad scenarios, and Marang say, "Oh, okay, I guess instead of getting a camp this with 100 gold, I'm gonna get 300 gold camps at the bot lane instead, right?" But the way that Karsa plays the game, he's the only person who does these red buff into bot lane, 3 camps into bot, 2 camps into bot kind of laning patterns. And then people will see him end the game with 70 CS, right? With a Gateman split and Poppy and nothing else. And when people look at that, of course, when he wins, it's like, oh, okay, sure, and stuff like that, right? But when the team starts losing and stuff, and you look at the stats and things like that, you compare him to the rest of the other junglers, and he's going to look very, very bad. Because it's not playing the same style carry junglers, it's not playing the Bel'Veth and all these style things that some of these other players are playing, and he's just playing in this very, I'm playing for my lanes, I'm playing to set my lanes up to succeed kind of fashion as well. So people who just look at the stats, they'll think that he's a bad player, and they don't really understand this is what he's seeing. He understands that even if I do red buff into bot lane over here, even if I don't get the gank happening, the fact that I now get pride from my bot lane means that my Lucian army can get the serrated by over the Zeri's Vampire accepted by, right? Which then flips the bot lane matchup. So it's these small little things that Karsa understands and Karsa does that people don't see and people don't realize when it comes to these style things. And I think that the other big thing is that I think in a lot of the marquee matchups and a lot of the key matchups, like if you think back to V5 last year in the spring split, Karsa and Rookie actually were losing 2v2 to Knight and Tian. Right, and that's the reason why they lost in the playoffs. And it's easy to look at this and say that, oh, okay, this is where Karsa impresses buttons and things like that. Karsa's washed and all that kind of stuff. And I guess you can say that that's a little bit of where you can give him criticisms, where his judgment on winning skirmishes and team fights isn't on the same level as some of these other junglers in the LPL, but his overall mind for the game, and once again, he's this player coach, right? He has this leadership figure, and he brings all these qualities to his team, and he understands the map control aspect of the game as well. This is the reason why he's way above any of these other players. He's very articulate, he knows how to express himself, and he can elevate the level of any team that he plays for on.
Yeah. Fair play. What about, let me think. I think that's about it on Weibo. I think we've discussed some stuff. I would say, let's talk about one of the bigger. Like as I said, the real surprise of this split so far is LNG.
Yeah,
like they had some players that should be good. Yeah, like we all know that like fucking Scout is literally a world champion and many times MVP and fucking LPL champion. Obviously Tarzan has been a talent for many years. I mean, quite frankly, why he doesn't play in LCK is beyond me. I can't believe they don't want him to play like that back. Like put him onto one of those top teams and be fucking God tier tomorrow. But for whatever reason, he's one of those ones that just stays stuck in LPL, right? But the idea that this team would be actually, like at the moment, like it wouldn't be unfair to say that they legitimately might be the best team. I mean, a lot of people thought obviously it was top recently. Most people think it's like JDG on the paper, but maybe we have to actually see all the big matches play out. LNG had no business being here, but they just won the legit games. Like if people don't know, somehow they keep getting booked as the last game on a Wednesday, and everyone knows I do Best Damn League show right after LPL. So I am essentially forced by Dom just to have to wait for that show to end to inadvertently watch all these LNG bangers, and they're all being fucking straight fire series, I can't lie. So, Jensen, where are you at on this team? Like, this team looks really fun, especially the top side of the map.
Actually, this is my fraudulent pick.
Really? They're the frauds. Okay, come on.
I think that this is the fraud. So first is Strength of Schedule, right? Strength of Schedule, they have only played against the bad teams so far. They haven't played TS, they haven't played JDG. The only good team I think they've played was EDG so far. So they haven't played Weibo, they haven't played TS, they haven't played JDG, they haven't played IG, and I think they're getting all 4 of those teams in a row starting from this week, right? So on top of that, the way that I look at the way that I play, I do not think there's anything special. I do not think that this is a team that has any particular edge to the game. It's not to say that this is the reason. I cannot come up with a very solid reason as to why I think this team is going to win. They play like an LCK team in the LPL where they play with this 2-1 system, and this is the team that I thought that if they had Iwandi, if LNG actually kept I1D, it would actually be so much better, right? Because they're playing with Hung, they're playing with Tarzan, and then they're playing with this support and jungle that are not necessarily connected, and Hung is playing all these engaged supports and things like that. I actually think that once they start to play against these top teams, the fact that they do not connect the support jungle pairing is going to be a very big factor as to why they're getting punished against these teams. In fact, the game that just happened, I believe this morning, or a few hours ago between LNG and BLG, I actually think that BLG should have won that set, right? And BLG, this is another two-lane team. I think is what I call an incomplete approach to two-lane approach. They're making some very key mistakes in the approach to its two lanes. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying that if this is a team that understands the two-lane style better, this is going to be a loss for LNG, right? And we saw that, I believe the only loss so far has been to NIP as well, where they had to play a two-lane composition. They did the Rise against the Azure Scion, and they were not able to accelerate the game because they're constantly playing towards 2-2-1, and then they're just getting outskilled by the Azure Scion on the other side of the map as well. So I actually have a lot of doubts when it comes to LNG being a real contender in the LPL itself. And yeah, they look great right now. They're 6-1 is only because of the strength of schedule.
I can't believe this man's just went through a whole of LNG and not fucking mentioned low priority. Fucking lightning pace. Fucking the worst ADC, one of the worst ADCs I have ever seen in the LPL. What do you think of LP, Jensen? Because I think this guy is fucking atrocious, mate. I don't even think this guy clicks properly. He cancels autos mid-fight. And right now in League of Legends, a lot of the damage burden of like objective setups and all that. It's all ADC. Like the damage percentage share of ADCs in League right now must be the highest. And this guy is getting fucking carried by Tarzan and like Maokai, by the way, and stuff. And obviously Scout playing like the iconic like Scout champions. Even getting the work done like Nightwood on like Silas or something. But mate, I think this LP more than anything bottlenecks this team. Not that I think that they're world beaters as well. I think they are also maybe not the best team in the LPL. They're maybe in the 3rd, 4th, 5th range. But I think the LP is the clear biggest problem on this team, just at a skill level before anything else.
Yeah. Actually, I did notice that they do play bot lane below par in quite a lot of scenarios, right? It's kind of flippy because there's some scenarios where they do score above par as well. I was thinking when they lost the Zeri Yumi versus Lucian Nami matchup and then they won it on the flip side. In the second game, I don't recall which team that was, but that was something that I had noted in my mind as well. The way I think about it is that if this is really the top team from the LPL, if T1 is the representative from Korea, T1 is going to eat this team alive just from the bot lane itself.
Yeah.
The key thing for me is, though, like those two players, Tarzan and Scout, and listen, jungle mid will always be a good way to play League of Legends. Those two players are absolutely some of the best in the entire LPL. Like, realistically, if by that logic, Jensen, if you actually don't think the lineups that good, then actually isn't Scout like the MVP of the fucking entire LPL right now? Like, he's smurfed nearly every game he's played, it looks like. By the way, I used to say this permanently about Zhao, but Scout's the other one. Those are the two most underrated players of all time from the LPL. Like, do people act like they're just all right? Like, motherfuckers who are from the West, this will hurt people from the Elsa Games feelings. They act like these guys are BDD. Like, mate, these guys are some of the best players ever in this region. Like, every year they just put in work. And you see, again, you can put them in any lineup. You can just put them with any players. Like, Scout, this lineup is mad cracked. He doesn't even have every single player around. This isn't a super team. Like I said, the roster on paper is even supposed to have a chance to be number one. So, what do you think at the moment, Jensen? Am I overhyping Scout? I think he's the best player right now that I've seen in all the matches.
I mean, when it comes to mid jungle on the LPL, this year is actually really, really stacked, right? Like you're JDG with Tian and Knight, you have TS with Rookie and who's the jungler for TS again?
No, it's Tian and Rookie, and it's Canavian.
Yes, you got that. You got them wrong.
Canavian and Knight, right? And even Weibo has got Karsa and Xiaohu. So mid jungle has always been a very, very stacked role across the board. And like I said, right, it's simply a strength of schedule thing. They look good because they've played against the bad teams. And against VLG and things like that. This is a team that if you throw, they will catch, right?
Okay.
It's that's my thoughts on it. But when it comes to if they need to piece together a plan to attack the game, I do not think they'll be able to do that. So this is why I'm not very high on them in terms of individual play and things like that. Scout's definitely playing well. Tarzan, I think Tarzan needs to. That's probably one of the ways I would think that if this team wants to really win the LPL, this is where Tarzan really needs to level up even more than he has already. And in the next few series, when they're playing against all these top teams, how that mid jungle functions is probably going to be the deciding factor if this is actually a contender or is just simply a team that was propped up by the strength of schedule.
Okay.
Fair enough.
We'll see on that one. I will say the other thing about Scout in general that I've been very impressed with his whole career is the floor of this player is ridiculous. Oh. It's another one of those players where are they ever bad? Ever? Doesn't seem like it. They can just be average at worst, like, or they're just above average consistently. It's just the problem is, as you say, like if you know his champion pool, it's not the sexiest one. It's going to be like the fucking majors, and he's just going to play a really good lane out. Yeah, of course.
I can say something about Scout because he actually was a victim of a narrative at Worlds because the ADG obviously lost to the Cinderella run. And Game 5 was obviously in such disastrous form for Scout, where he like completely collapsed. I remember I spoke to you a little bit on Discord, Thorin, because it was one of the only collapses I'd ever seen of like Scout in a series, by the way, where he just completely went bonkers, like and fed basically, like literally fed live on air. But I rewatched that series, and Scout was smashing. Like if he had won that Game 5, or if someone had carried him out of that Game 5, you would have actually walked away from that series with a completely different narrative high of like Scout having won EDG the series. Like he was playing the first 4 games very well. Like as good as you would ask of any player. Like he was more suffering from circumstance. And then you know what? He's came back into the LPL and he's sick again. And it's like he has just been a universal constant like with Xiaohu of the LPL since like 2015, 2016, where he was previously carrying the EDG franchise. Now he's moved on to something else. We're actually seeing a new dynamic, I think, to Scout's game, where now we have a mid-jungle version of Scout. Loads of Scout's gameplay for me was basically very stable lanes, poor understanding of side lanes, but a really good team fighter. One of the best, one of the most like refined, really good at using skill shots. But now we're actually seeing a version, even though the champ pool doesn't reflect that, of him synergizing with Tarzan to win these 2v2, 2v1 situations around mid lane. And I think that is, what you were saying, is a strength of all the LPL teams. Well, if it's a strength of all the LPL teams, we're obviously going to get to see them play against them all. But if they can put the rookies and Knights onto the back foot, like these guys are very, very used to playing with leads. People like Knight in particular. So if you can like destabilize that, put them behind, and you know what I mean, their ability to damage calculate is off in the game. Like that can have massive like effects on that team's ability to win and stuff. So yeah, their strength of schedule is weak, but the one thing I would say is they did win all the games, and they won them pretty convincingly. The BLG one's a little bit more like dicey, obviously, but I don't think BLG is just a straight up bad team, and I think they maybe got not so much like counter PCs, but like finicky, like annoying PCs that can just like randomly just beat you like one off in a BO3.
Sure. Right, if we talk a bit about top. One of the interesting things about this team, if people don't know, is even though they lost what was their franchise player in Knight, the joke is if someone told me you have to lose Knight, but then I was like, oh, fucking hell, well, what am I going to do? And they go, but I could give you Rookie. It's like, well, you know, it's like the joke is it's about one of about 2 names you could ever tell me that I'd be like, okay. All right, because basically it's that or Chovy's coming over or something like. It's like you could, or Showmaker did the move to LPL. Like, there's not many names, but like this is one of the few ones. And sadly, people won't know this, but it ties into what you were saying before, Jensen. Rookie was even good last year as well. He still was very good. Like, I think if people don't know, this is where people, because I have one of the takes which actually isn't even that big a hot take. It's just a hot take if you don't watch the LPL, which is that obviously, like, it's not going to sound great now because actually, bizarrely, this split in the LCK, Faker is really cracked actually, and he is actually having loads of sick games. But the last few years, if you watched Faker's game, it was more like a Xiaohu game. It wasn't like he was the best raw mid laner and you could drop him in any team and he 1v9. If anything, it was like they were put pieces around him that he played to and he was like the functioning engine of the style like that. I think for the last like 4 or 5 years, Rookie's just been the better mid laner. It's just the problem is he didn't go to Worlds and his teams had some notorious inters and people who fuck up playoffs and regional runs, even including, by the way, champions like the Shy, who's done it fucking 2 times to him at least from my count. So I don't think people know, like, There was maybe like 2 years ago, there was maybe like a split rookie ad that wasn't that good. That's about it. Aside from that, like he is still cracked as fuck. And the joke is, actually, if anyone could mentally handle getting a top esports lineup, which don't worry, it's still a top esports lineup. It's like somehow, even though it's not any of the former top laners, they found another one. Like, you know how certain teams like IG famously would never recruit like and play around the ADC only, right? There are certain teams that just seem to recruit players. It's like they just get drawn to them. So top esports always has to have a fragile fucking top laner who sometimes carries. It doesn't matter. You can replace the fucking name at this point in time. Is it 369? Is it Zoom? Is it Wayward? Is it King? Any of them. That's always what they have in top lane. But spoiler, that's what Rookie played with his whole motherfucking career in the LPL. So that's okay. We're all right with that. Then you're going to go. Normally, it's tricky to play with Jackie, mate. If anyone knows how to play with Jackie, it's Rookie. He's very well versed in that one. He knows the good and the bad in Jackie. And so the joke is this team's actually pretty cracked again. Like, look, obviously the Tian one, I think a lot of people feel a bit like you've rug pulled us twice at Worlds now, but there's a reason why he gets to go to Worlds on the top teams. He does smurf in the LPL, and he has justifiably won fucking MVPs and been the player that got to the finals and got them to the... So where are you at on this team, Jensen? Because this is another one where before they actually got the recent wins, people were trying to say maybe they're just surfing the strength of schedule and they're just beating all the bad teams and stuff, but the actual pieces do look like there's the makings of a very strong team here.
The eye test in terms of what I see, right? Your statement about Rookie is definitely correct. This is a player who not only can win lane, this is a player who can win lane and influence the map itself. And I think Rookie is definitely, if we were to go by MVPs, right? If Karsa's the MVP for the jungle position, Rookie is definitely the MVP for the mid lane because of the sheer amount of firstly, he plays his lane above par, and he understands how to play the map as well. He understands how to control the map via playing on 2 lanes. He knows, and he's looking for these opportunities to then sneak an addition away from the side lane and all these kind of things as well. I think that this is a team that at the moment you can still see some team play issues, but I think that these definitely can be ironed out over time. And but the way that Rookie is looking for these opportunities on the side lane, the way that this is a team that once again plays in 2 lanes, connects the support and jungle, they check a lot of the boxes in terms of like, this is a team that I like a lot to watch.
Where you at?
So this team is basically just TES last year with Knight. It's basically decided how many games does top laner want to lose and how many games does Jackie Love want to throw. This team can win LPL, this team can win Worlds, it can win MSI, it can be a dynasty, but none of it's in Rookie's control. But well, it is in Rookie's control, but I expect like the same with Knight, I expect like a standard performance of like he'll get the game into positions where they're like 8k gold ahead and like maybe Jackie doesn't want to win the LPL this day and he dies like twice, 3 times, 4 times. Like that's the types of things that can happen on TES. But they could also just 3-0 EDG, 3-0 every other team. They can just look so dominant in every series because when you play like those players do, with like people like Tian, Jackie Love, the variance is so high that the fragility of the team can be on like a knife's edge. Yeah, Rookie has been, him and Knight are the 2 best players, mid laners in the LPL, just isolated like mid laners. Xiaohu's a different thing entirely. Yeah, if you lose Knight, you have to go get Rookie because he's the only person that can replace him. I think this team is basically just what it was before with a different champion pool. He's worse at Silas and Assassins. He's better at Orianna and backline mages. That's the trade-off. But and he's also generally better at laning. But that's the trade-off. That's generally just it. When I look at TES, it's just how long can the team keep it together? Their coaching staff, I think
they've still got Crescent,
yeah. So they're fucked there as well because that guy just will not draft like a human.
He's definitely. If people don't know, like somehow all coaches also for toppies, but you can even change it. It can be like the Warhorse guy. It doesn't matter. All coaches also do like drafts where you think like that they looked at the wrong side. Like, oh no, your team's on the other side. Like, what? I drafted that. Like, it's even famous in the team. The players just comment like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck the draft was like.
Yeah, Knight literally said in an interview, he's like, I don't know how we win with these drafts. It was like, and the thing was, it's like, if I was to go to the spring final and I was to go, right, okay, what champion do you think Jackie Love played in game 5 of spring final? You'd be like, oh, maybe like, I don't know, it was a Draven. You know what I mean? Like, that's not that. No, it wasn't. He played Ziggs.
Ziggs.
Exactly.
There
He
you
played
go.
game 5. He played Ziggs into Zhao Hu's Zoe and got insta-killed 4 times. Like, that's it. That's how.
I just love the idea of drafting Ziggs of all champions for Jackie Love. Like, that's amazing. Okay, that's perfect. That's like troll level, mate.
Oh, sorry, it was Vex, that insta-killed him. But anyway, like, that's what we were at with Crescent's drafting. Yeah, you could just randomly lose. He can, like, counter-pick himself. Like, Rookie, you know what I mean? You're, like, on 5th pick, and Crescent just tells you to, like, pick something, and you can see the player, like, looking around at him like that. Like, you're telling me to pick what? And it's like, he's highlighting the champion, and the draft makes no sense. TES can lose games to that, but the player quality is so high in the team. Like, it just is. Like, Jackie Love is that. Like, I'm very critical of him, but he is just that mechanical master where, like, when you watch him dodge all the skill shots and all that, it's like, how do you beat him? Like, it is just that sexy. It is just that good. He does make you feel just paralyzed.
Yes.
He's got all the champions. He plays all the lanes out. He is, like, he's turned into, like, a small, like, miniature modern version of, like, Uzi, which is, like, what people put his, like, trajectory on. He obviously support's not as good. But, like, yeah. One player I would be really critical of, because I think this guy skates on piss ice, is fucking is the jungler Tian. Because the games, there are junglers in the LPL. So when Karsa has his top laner dying like 5 times in one game, right? You actually see that like he still has like a coherent plan to win the game. When Tian's jungler like ints like a fucking psychopath, Tian also just fucks the entire game along with the jungler and will like do like the craziest like shit of like the person will be like 4 kills down and they'll try and like 2v1 like the ultra fed top laner and both die to him. It's like there's just some insane decision making with that guy. But yeah, generally that's my take on TES. Very same book, different front cover.
I actually think that Rookie replacing Knight is a very big thing that this team needed to really succeed, because the way that Knight plays, and you see this at JDG as well, is that Knight, I believe that Knight is a very big voice on his teams, right? And the teams that Knight plays on is, you always watch the D teams and it's like what you say, these D teams, they tend to lack discipline as a whole. So is it because of the way that Knight's calling things? That's why they're taking these fights in mid lane so aggressively. Whereas when TS is not playing Rookie, you can feel that there's a little bit more measure to it. So they're taking the time to control the map, pushing the side lanes before they make the decisions and before they pick their fights as well. And I think that one of the very interesting things to compare is Ruler and Jackie Love, right? Both of these AD carries, now they have both done the turbo ints, right? At some point in the LPL, where you just go in and you start to take these team fights. And I think that we can talk about this a little bit when we start to talk about JDG, right? But a lot of people, they just remember Jackie Love. It's the same thing as Scout, right? They remember him for the inting moments, right? When he's just hitting the mid tier 1 as the Draven when they were playing at Worlds, or the very famous Zeri in Game 5 where he was trending across the social media sites when he just went in and just inted the game and the team fight that way. But he's still definitely a very solid player, and it's one of the things about what is it that these LPL AD carries eat, and how do they think about the game that allows them to make these style plays and play in such a manner, right? The other very famous one is Gala, and the way that he would just flash forward into a lot of these scenarios as well. And probably it's the same reason as to why I think Rulers will struggle a little bit more in the LPL, at least at the start.
Yeah, what I would say is, like, I'd echo what you both say there. The problem Jackie Love has is he's not only been on some teams like the top esports ones that always underwhelmed at Worlds, but even worse, like, obviously, when they won with IG, all the credit just went to the Shy and fucking Rookie, and even like Ning was the bloody MVP of the fight. So it just makes it look like, oh, did you do nothing? So I actually agree. I think actually the best contrast was always Uzi, because sadly, Westerners never knew. He also entered a lot, if you watch the LPL, he also had plenty of times he went super deep. And by the way, I get why both of them do it. If you ever see the highlights of these guys at their best, they are the ADCs where you have to actually slow down the YouTube video and go at like 0.25 speed. And when you do that, you're still thinking like, how the fuck is he like, you're fucking sidestepping that and then doing extra damage. Every autos gets cancelled perfectly. Fucking, oh, they're unbelievable. So basically the point is, even though in your brain, yeah, you're going to have like the craziest int games where he's done some terrible like tactical jump in. He also, here's the difference though. If tactical had some of the games this guy have, I could forgive it, mate. This guy has some of like Uzi, some of the greatest team fight sequences you will ever see in your life. Ones where like if you did that once in your career, you'd just get up and be like, I'm fucking goated. These guys, for real, you can tell it's why they play so abusive, exploitative. You can tell that they must just be cracked as fucking scrims, mate. Like, I can't even imagine the limit testing players like that must do, because what they can actually do in like real playoff games is unbelievable. Like, I'll always say this, it's like the Shy. I'll allow you to lose me some games if you also like win me unwinnable games. If you could just take like a game where it was never supposed to be possible, you could just seize that for me. I have to weigh it up. You know, sometimes that's going to be worth it. Like you're saying there, like sometimes maybe I want it to be high variance, so that's how we're going to win. Maybe we're going to overcome problems with drafting or certain interactions by just going crazy high variance and seeing like can like fucking Tian get a Lee Sin game off? Can Rookie just crush like a couple of fucking mid games? Oh, mate, that's the thing, that this team, on paper, they probably shouldn't be the best team, but they're a fucking mad exciting roster, though. So much could happen with this, which, by the way, is also just, again, totally in keeping with how top esports just makes their teams somehow. Just bizarrely the way they make them, who knows? And sadly, I've just accepted now, guys. There's never going to be that really comfortable team for Rookie ever in the LPL. He's just not allowed it, is he? He's not allowed to have the team with just a really stable, nice tank top laner. They're like, you know, fucking, he never gets ruler, you know, as his ADC, Jensen. He always has to have some fucking lunatics. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous, isn't it? I've just accepted it now. I've accepted it, though. It's okay.
That's, as a GM, that's probably what I would do as well, right? I probably wouldn't want a I guess 369 is probably the closest you get to like a stable tank top lane that can soak pressure in the top lane for Rookie. Would the Rookie ever play?
I mean, the old Zoom would be if you went years back, you know. No, they've never played together.
They've never played together. Right?
Yeah, I don't think they play together. But the way that if I'm GMing around a Rookie team, I'm going to be playing definitely top side of the map, especially since he made his especially ever since he made his switch over to what I say that he transcended the style, right? Because at the start, Rookie was this very mage-centric player where he was very good. He's known for Orianna, he's known for Syndra, where the famous stories would be where he would play, I believe it's like Syndra into Orianna, he wouldn't buy items and he still solo killed open a mid laner anyways, right? But that was what he was known for. And why he's so valuable as a player is that he can execute lane of a power and then he also can play the map as well. So if you have that, I would almost always want to be playing around solo lanes with him, right? Because he can play these style things and he's transitioned his champion pool as well, where he can play all these assassins and brutes as well. Which he showed very clearly during the V5 days. And if that's going to be the case, then that is the type of top laner that I will want to pair with him, right? If I wanted him to just play Azir and stuff like that, which he was doing at one point of time in the very cursed IG rosters, right? When the rest of the team was just Rookie dragging 4 dead bodies across the finish line, then that's something that he could do, right? Then he will play Azir, the top laner will play Sion, and then to just wait and skill and hope the opponent throws at some point of time in the game. But I think that's not necessarily at least in the LPL sphere. I think for some of them, I do not think that is how they think the game should be played. Where now you see the way that TS is playing is a lot of playing on 2 lanes, so somebody won't be getting farm, and there's a lot of emphasis on the solo lanes. So definitely the school of thought has definitely trended towards that, and I would say that is generally the type of top laner that you want to pair with Rookie, so that you have the ability to then contest the side lanes aggressively with such a top laner as well.
Put it this way, Jensen, what I would have said is this: if I had to just choose only for Rookie's career, I would put him on the current JDG lineup. That's the dream lineup. But here's the problem. Rookie, you already got your world, son. I need Knight to get his now. Like, just be patient. It's his time now. You listen, if it was a couple of years ago, I'm with you. You should definitely get that team. It does look like the perfect squad for you. You probably win everything. It'd be totally just fine. But you already got that world. Like, since you got that one, Knight has to have his, for fuck's sake. I can't let Knight, listen, Knight is not going to get Narmade. I'm not going to have it where not only am I right that he was better, but then they never even get the fuck, because you know the worst thing about the Narmade story is because he just did that one world and peaced out. It's like you never even get the fucking chance to prove how good they were. Like the idiot in the West goes, I was right. He never was a good player. Like, oh, he's brilliant, you idiot. What are you talking about? He's mega.
It's crazy that Rookie's most stable top laner was somebody in 2014. Like I've just went through that. He had like Zatai, then the Shy, then oh my,
Rich. He has the craziest variance top laners, exactly. And notice there's even also the quality that, like, bro, if you play with Rookie, you've got to, like, it's like in League of Legends in general, you got to learn when to get carried. Like, if he's just killing it in mid lane, you just let him carry you. He's always with the top laner that thinks they're secretly the carry. Like Zatai, like, I am IG. Like the Shy, just like, I am playing tanks good, just running into people. Like, oh, it's ridiculous. And then the Rich guy, obviously, here's how you knew always that the Rich guy was mildly fraudulent. that they were still mentioning like 3 years into being in league. Like, he was really good in HOTS. Like, why are you even mentioning that? Why would that be the first thing you say if he was just cracked at league? Like, it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? Like, the fact that was always the first thing they said is so stupid, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Classic.
Fair enough. If that was the case, right, I think Rookie is probably one of the LPL mid laners that would do very well if he went back to the LCK.
Oh, he'd surely kill it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would do good anywhere he goes, mate. He's like, Rookie's game's timeless. That's the problem with it. Like, it's just, no matter what iteration of League of Legends you're playing, like, Rookie will always just be, he is in, I always talk about Jensen, there's like basically an elite four of mid laners, right? Where it's like, not right now because of their individual level, but like nobody can really touch them, maybe except for Caps. And it's like Rookie, Chove, Knight, and Showmaker. And they're literally in like a little bubble on their own, and they're all like better or slightly worse than each other at certain things. But when I watch like Rookies, like, and how long he's done it for, like, people say like Chove's like a good laner, right? I challenge it. Rookie is like a good laner, but not in the way that like Chove is. I mean, like, Rookie is on top of you, stomping on your head, breathing like down your neck, where like Chovi's is like a nice, like, controlled, perfect like wave management for like the 2v2 matchup, where Rookie's just like winning matchups that are like everyone else thinks are losing ones. Like, he just wins every matchup on Orianna for some strange and unknown reason. Like, he is one of those like really transcendent players where like the champions that he was like literally famous for being like insane on, he's like not even playing those champions anymore, and he's now insane on an entirely new set of champions and design. So I don't know, like, Rookie is just one of those players. I think with TS he's gonna have a really good shot. Maybe not the most control on the outcome, but he'll have a very good shot at it.
I have to say, if I could like pause the LPL now and just ensure that like JDG and Top are the teams that go to fucking MSI, that would be amazing. Especially considering it's got that double Olymp playoffs. Oh, that's all I need right there. That's all I need. Because that's another thing people forget. A region like LPL is one of the ones that's going to benefit the most from sending two teams to MSI. Like, first of all, they were already winning MSI anyway, but it just means another set of players get to show how good they are internationally. And in that reduced format, you're just beating up on like one or two teams from LEC. There's not even the same crapshoot element of Worlds where you just lose to some random team. Right, if we talk a bit about JDG, then obviously this is the team in the off season where you just like, how is this being constructed? Like, this is a fucking unbelievable lineup of players. Like, if you're on the Knight side, the joke is he really did just do, like, we have that saying in English, Jensen, like, if you can't beat them, join them. Like, if people don't know how many fucking times like JDG's just like the final boss for this guy, and especially it was Yagawa, who was obviously a worse mid laner, but bizarrely just permanently like was living rent free in Knight's fucking head every time he played him in a series. It's one of those ones where it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's like some past history shit. So like, finally he joins the team. He already tried before to take Zoom, but that didn't work because obviously that only works if you're in JDG and not with Knight. It's like must be some sort of Magic the Gathering card there with an aura effect or something. Because obviously the second Zoom left JDG is fucking garbage, wasn't he? And so now they have just got the God lineup. If people don't know, the lineup they've got is obviously they kept all of the team except they changed mid and ADC. And remember, they used to have a pretty good mid ADC, but they've replaced them with Knight as the mid laner and they got Ruler as their ADC. Like, if people don't know, that's essentially a contender for best player at mid and ADC. They just added to what already had like arguably the best top laner, well, certainly one of the best in the world, one of the best carry junglers, definitely. And then even though they're not that well known, the support's a pretty good player too. He's just not that deep in his career. So like, this lineup's bonkers on paper, Jensen.
Oh, I mean, I've always been a 369 hater, and that's the carries on to this year. Like, if anybody watched the,
you didn't think last year was like the big level up for him?
Yes and no. I think a lot of it was definitely covered very well by the coaching staff, understanding very clearly what type of player he is, and then drafting champions for him accordingly, where he wouldn't show us the problems that he's showing us now, right? Where he's playing like Cannon and stuff like that. Okay, so 369's problem is that he needs discipline, right? This guy, you watch the way that he plays, and I was talking about the whole T1 versus Genji game, where Peanut walks in the jungle and just gets one shot, and then Genji throws the game from there, right? Against T1. The number of times you see 369 making a similar play is actually very, very high, right? It's just that when he plays like things like Aatrox and Sion, if you're Sion, sure, you're giving up a freebie is not the worst thing in the world. You get chunked by 2000 HP, and you're still tanking the team fight. You still contribute CC, and if you're playing Aatrox, you still can do that to a certain extent, right? Now he's playing things like Cannon and Jax and things like that. His mistakes on the side lane, his mistakes in terms of making these self moves are a lot more pronounced, right? I'm thinking to like one of the games where they're setting up for a Drake fight, and he's in the top lane, and he's forced to be in a position where he has to blow his cannon ulti before the Drake spawns and things like that. So this is a player where I think that he has a very clear set of fatal flaws. If you put him onto comfort, if you put him onto things where I can afford to draw a lot of pressure, I can afford to get away with these style things. Things like when he's playing his Gragas, when he's playing the Siren and things like that, that is when he looks best. Right. But when he has to play things like the Jax, the Camille, the Cannon, to a certain extent I would say Renekton, but not so much that. That is when his bad habits would be a lot more punishing for 369.
Fair enough.
Okay.
See, I'm going to be fair. Even though I am the father of the 99 agenda, this team is also slightly fraudulent because they have actually also not beaten anyone good. Right now, you can say they almost beat.
True.
They almost beat World Gaming, but almost isn't beating them. Right? You know what I mean? So I don't give a fuck. Right? They lost it. Okay. The games are there to be won, and it's not on your scorecard because they've literally just like the most legit team that GDG beat. I think they beat. Was it BLG? And they beat Weeaboo Gaming. Sorry, no, they lost to Weeaboo Gaming. It was BLG was the most legit team they beat, and it was in the opening game, week 1. And the rest of them are all like outside of like playoffs and like bottom 2 teams, RNGs on like the brink. I can't actually, let me have a look here. I think they beat, IG would be the other maybe semi-legit team that they possibly beat. But yeah, when they're playing the games, they're dominant, but they haven't actually shown me what it's going to be against this, which has actually kind of made the LPL really sick because we're going forward. We've got this amazing stretch, all the top teams, right, having playing each other.
Essentially, a lot of the big names had bad strength of schedule to start with, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so we're going to get to see basically all these teams in some way or another are good enough because they're not just excelling it and just 10th. Like JDG aren't just randomly bad. So there are skills there. So we've got a big long stretch of them playing, TES. I think they've got them next week or something, or the end of this week. There's loads and loads of games. Ruler has been very, 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 very good at basically smurfing on the bot lanes that haven't got a clue on what he's doing. But the minute he was kind of getting pressured and contested a little bit, there was some cracks in his gameplay that weren't there. I don't think that's actually going to be something of consistency. I think more likely than anything, Ruler will iron that out, and moving forward, he'll be the Ruler that we've known. Same way for Rookie and everyone else. The laws of averages tell you he's most likely just going to continue to be a great player. I actually think the team construction here was really, really smart. GDG love objective setups. They love team fight setups. I think Knight's the best of any of the mid laners like that. He's got some of the most creative team fighting. His champion choices are maybe a little bit dodgy, but I don't know if that's Crescent or him. He's actually the WB.
I mean, technically, he can't be Crescent anymore. It's not the same team now. Is he?
No, but
you mean historically, sure.
Historically, yeah. Where it would just pick Silas any game, no matter what. Yeah, I think the team's very, very good. It's country really well. I always wanted to see Kanave and Knight play together. I think in some regards it has been as good as I thought it was. I'm not the biggest 369 lover either, Jensen. I think he was rolling a lot of 9s last year, and people basically just looked at that and were like, "Oh my god, he's the perfect player, the perfect top laner." And you've got to give him credit for when he does do it. But this year it's been a lot of 6s. At least it's not 3s. But yeah, I would say this team has, in some ways though, been quite somewhat underwhelming. But the games where I wanted to see them dominating the opposition, which was the EDG and the WG games, the way they lost was just kind of pathetic. It was just a nothing there. I'm fairly sure it was the EDG series. I always get them mixed up with the top. Yeah, it was the EDG series where watching Kanave just be out jungled by someone who basically just rolled back the years on a time teleporter was brutal to watch. I don't know. I have like hopes for what I want the team to be going forward, but like I've got like underlying concerns about like how elite they actually will be. Obviously, Ruler can't speak the language, and there's like possible communication barriers there. But I don't know. In general, what have you like kind of thought of like how the teams like mesh together? Did you imagine them playing a different way?
I mean, the main thing for me is like I actually think to have Ruler on a team with 369 and Knight is genius, because if you don't know, I think Ruler's the best at. Like the difference is now he actually can be in contention for like best ADC ever, because he had like mastered that like praise style where you just play like essentially you don't have to have everyone play through fucking Uzi Eye style bot lane. You can just play like fucking just get to the team fight, do your job. But in the later years, he's also been like a main focus of all the resources. Like it looks like now he can do what he wants. So in their team, what I see is like in the games where you can get 369 onto one of his champions, he can carry on, because he definitely can carry and do fucking really well on bruises and stuff. Like you got the player who can shore it up, whereas Jackie Love was always the liability because he just plays like Jackie Love every fucking game, no matter what the draft is and who he's playing with. So I think Ruler's a more appropriate ADC in that sense. Like what I like about this team is, look, we'll have to see if this can play out, but it has that tantalizing appeal of maybe they can play through any lane. Maybe they can change styles as the meta swap throughout the year. That would be really cool. Whereas the difference is top esports lineups were a lot more fragile in that sense. They were either like super sick at what they were doing, or they were like they're totally the wrong meta read. And as we say, the coaching staff could do fucking anything with that draft. Whereas in this team, it looks pretty good all round, yeah. And I have to say, as much as people used to big up that line of like, oh, it's the Yagao Kanavi thing, it just looks like it was Kanavi, mate, if I'm being honest. Oh, yeah, the point you said as well. That's also why the LPL is so harsh, because obviously people exploit jungle gaps so much if they exist. So if you were a fan just watching random games, you would have no idea where you're at, because you'd be like, wait a minute, so the JJ guy gaps the Kanavi guy, but then isn't Kanavi better than Tian? But then Tian always beats JJ. It's like, what is this? Like, that's just the LPL, boys. That is just the LPL. There are certain matchups that make no sense. They just always go one way in it. Like, it doesn't matter how good the JJ guy, Tian always just scoops his ass up every time as well. Like, fucking hell. It's mental, in it.
I actually want to talk a little bit about Ruler, right? Because this is one of the things when you talk about football analogies, where like if you play in a league, like say the German league, and then you go over and play in the EPL, it's a much more physical game. And then you hear these stories about players in football, they struggle to adapt to the English game and all these style of things as well. I think Ruler's going to have a little bit of those challenges, be it for language issues or whatsoever, where Ruler is definitely a premier team fighting AD carry, right? You see the amount of damage he does in some of these team fights, he's definitely the best. Last year he was the best team fighting AD carry in the world. And Genji definitely facilitated that very well. But the difference is that from the AD carry perspective, you are able to do these style things because you're tracking what the cooldowns are on the opponent's side of the map. Sorry, you're tracking what cooldowns that your opponents have access to, and then you know very clearly, I'm saving my flash for the scenario, I'm saving my dash for the scenario, and then you're able to execute accordingly, play at the range of your character's abilities and all that kind of stuff, right? And in the LCK, it's a lot easier to do that because there's a lot more handshaking. I'm playing for my turn, you're playing for your turn. There's this like turn-based thinking where now, okay, I've got to respect the mid lane because it is your turn, and then now it's my turn. This is where we can play aggressively. There's a lot more 1-3-1. There's a lot more 2-2-1 in the LCK. Whereas in the LPL, the game is played at a much different pace and a much different approach, where you have these two lane philosophy teams that are going over there. The activity is a lot higher as compared to what he might be used to in the LCK. And in a scenario where it's just that you have this handshake and you know that this game is going to come down to this trick fight at say 27 minutes. So before that, you can collect all this information. You can check for your teammates. Okay, does this guy have splash? Does this guy have this spell up or whatsoever? Where you go into the team fight. Whereas now he doesn't have the communication. He doesn't have the language ability to do that. And on top of that, the pace at which the LPL is played, the fights are just happening a lot more. And I think that this is also where I would say Knight is a curse and a blessing for him, right? He's a blessing because you're playing with Knight as a mid laner, and then the curse is that Knight, he always likes to call for these team fights, right? I'm thinking to one of the games that they were playing, the opponents were doing the Drake. Knight was playing Silas, he was pushing in the top lane, he already took the tier 2 and things like that. They didn't have to contest the Drake at all. I believe this was I don't recall what was the game, which game it was exactly.
Oh, this is the second. This is the game they won against Weibo Gaming, isn't it? And they go to like they've got no vision at the fight, and they all just TP in on it and run into the Drake.
Yeah, it's not just against Weibo, right? But they do that a lot, where they just TP into scenarios where they don't have set up and then just try to outplay them anyways, right? So because they're going for a lot more of these flip scenarios, your ability to track and say that this is the one big team fight I have to win. Now it's happening every 3 minutes instead. So this is where it's going to be a learning curve for Ruler to see that if he can adapt to this pace as well. Because at the same time, you're going to have there was like a clip of him winning a fight 2v4, and at the same time there was the Wave War series where he just goes in anyways, right? So this is one of the things where the 1-for-1 transfer, Ruler being the best team fight in the LCK, doesn't necessarily transfer over to the LPL. It's yet to be seen.
The difference is, though, if people don't know, to contrast it with the Gen G that Ruler just came from. Listen, Chovy was never bad in team fights. Don't tell me that. Like, don't do the Alfari thing where they're only allowed to be good at one thing and they're terrible at everything else. Like, but he wasn't Knight in team fights. Like, Knight is actually cracked as well. The difference is that already looked fucking amazing, the setup they had with Chovy and Ruler. If they can actually consistently play well for mid and ADC in this team has to have a chance to win everything. It's just got the firepower. It's crazy.
And they've got arguably one of the best coaches of all time, who is like, I don't really like talking about coaches because I have no idea what they do. I don't know what they're responsible for. I don't know if players control draft, coaches control draft, right? Unless I'm explicitly told like information, I very rarely like blame them or give them credit. I just a general assessment. Yeah. However, I do like Home, right, as like some guy that goes all the way back to 2013, won an OGN, coached the Samsung teams of legend. This guy is one of the people that I modeled like my adage of like know thyself. Home knew who he was, but was like the ultimate player of understanding what someone can and can't do. For example, when he played in Korea, he played Zac top because he knew he could never beat Flame in lane. So he just like FF'd the game and didn't give a fuck and just played the ultimate weak side guy, right? But Home does that for his players. Like, Home knew Kanavi was like a carry jungler, right? So he would tax Zoom's top lane, and he knew Zoom was like a low econ, weak side top laner. And so he had all the parts made sense. He had Jagal, who was a low econ mid laner, who was able to get every molecule worth out of the gold. Like, all of Home's decisions and like pickups and how he's drafted and played for his players has made sense. And so even though I look at problems with this GDG lineup, I see them getting ironed out like quite quickly. Like for example, in their like opening games, when they were playing against BLG, they weren't like covering like flank wards. No one was like hanging them, and you could see it by like the next like 2-3 series. Like Kanavi was instantly on top of it, like being a lot more diligent on like Drake setups, like clearing them out. It's as if he had like assigned a role or a player had taken like responsibility. And they had identified it like so quickly. So when you've got a group of unbelievably talented people like JDG, and you've also got a mega coach, I think genuinely, if this team doesn't like win like 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4 of the tournaments available this year, you're genuinely looking at it being like a failure. Like, yes. It's hard for me to say because like league's a very volatile game naturally. It's very hard to be the best team in spring and also the best team at the end of the year. But this team has just got all the pieces. Like it becomes like a weak side bot lane. Well, Ruler's done that, and 3969. Oh, it's carry junglers. Oh, it's utility mids. It's like I see this team just having a very easy way of transferring all their skills. So I think there's a real chance of them like just winning all and grand slamming. I know that seems like crazy to me, but that is genuinely the expectation here. Like I don't know why it isn't. Like that it really is just that level. Or like they should be making finals and losing in like legendary form, or like that's the type of team we're talking about here.
Yes.
How quickly can they get to that? I don't know. We're going to see them play against all the top teams. It's going to be really interesting, but I've got really high hopes for them.
Like, to me, the dream at any point in League of Legends, like, it's very rare you're ever going to have metas where, like, forget the idea it's not viable. It's not just the best approach to be the best at team fighting. It's just going to be always the best way in League of Legends to win the game, especially in the modern day where they put in the dragons and made the game objective-focused, etc. It means there's actually now not even any way to avoid that. Like, you can't even choose to permanently not opt into that. You have to some degree, play the objective. And well, in the objective game, like, the dream is that you have the most cracked mid laner and the most cracked ADC, and then it's like you pick your poison. Like if you want the NBA analogy, that's like having the best inside player and the best perimeter player. It's like, well, you can only guard one of us at one time, so go for the inside guy if you want, in which case the perimeter guy is going to tear you up. Because like everyone knows in a great team fight, when you're on the teams where it's like they've got like the good ADC and the cracked mid laner, you can see every fucking person just goes after the mid laner in the team fight. Like, right, all the CC on him, save the ult for him. When you have the two, it's a bit like that game, if people remember the last game of G2 versus Koi, where it's like you actually couldn't couldn't have picked one target to kill. That was why it was a nightmare for Koi. Like, you could try and target one person, but like the other two people would eat you up. Like the Olaf would run on you, or the fucking ADC would kill. Like, you couldn't. That's what this team, if they go to the top level, could be like. Whereas like the difference was Genji could, like, they looked like that at the time, but they had to follow that script that they had. They had that formula they just played out, and while that was working, it was awesome. And to be fair, they were still only one game from making the finals. But that's another team where you look at, like, it isn't good. It's not like, oh well done. You know, you won a split, you made semis of worlds, Keire. It's like, that's another team. You're supposed to just win everything there. That's when Chovy's supposed to be the world champion, probably the MVP as well. That's when you have no excuses. That's the other thing I'll say, right? I often say this in the past, but I'll say this now for Knight. This is where I'll make loads of excuses for my favourite players. There's no excuse with this lineup, mate. You have to win now. You know, like, if you are as goated as I think you are, this is the lineup you win with. Why wouldn't you? You already had some pretty good lineups before too. Yeah,
the thing was, like, the crazy thing is like, when Knight, last year when he made back-to-back finals, right? If you had expected Knight, like, except from the upper bracket game against GDG, where like your guy was living in his head rent free, but in both finals, if you had wanted Knight to play better or like to do more, you were literally asking or had expectations for a player that you are not holding any other person accountable to. Like, you would genuinely, you're just creating a set of values just so that you can basically analyze them to fail. Because like, no, you would never expect anyone else to play better or do more to like get their teams into like winning positions. And during regular season, it was mega. But that version of Knight actually hasn't so far shown up so much in JDG. And the games where the games against the two like good teams, like, Knight hasn't just been like take over the game like good. Like, there was loads of situations where even though Ruler was dying, like Knight could have won those situations. He didn't clip Zonya's. He got stunned in one shot of a Xiaohu. Like, these are mistakes. Yeah, Ruler's dying, but like, you were like 5-0 on Akali, and no one can kill you if you like just press your R. Like, there were still mistakes from Knight. So yeah, again, across the law of averages, I think Knight will just be one of the best players in the split. It's happened so frequently before, but it's not a certainty, and it's something to like keep your eye on as things moving forward. If you go 1, 2, 3 series deep and Knight's still not doing that against elite teams, you have to reevaluate where this team's at.
Yes. Right, let's pivot then. Let's talk about EDG, Jensen, one of your favourites always. So obviously, like, on paper, this team shouldn't have had any chance. Like, they lost Scout, like that was their franchise player, the one the team was based around. I always thought as well, what a brilliant team to have him in. Because, I mean, we talked about this during the Worlds episode, if people remember. Just a very well-balanced squad. Like, it was just a bunch of good players that they seemed to have the same, like, vision of how to play the game, and they could play through the right lanes, right? But at the same time, like, this is where, again, you know, people who don't watch the LPL, because people who don't watch the LPL, right, they think, Fofo, isn't he a guy from the LMS? It's like, bro, that's so many years ago that he played in the LMS. And then secondly, what you might remember was he was one of the ones who immediately came over. Remember, they had the Suning team as well. They had those teams where the LMS stars came over and they all failed initially, right? That was only at the beginning, guys. After that, he actually did get really good like he was in the LMS. So what do you think? Because this is a team that on paper, maybe like Western fans don't think this lineup should be that good. It's actually a pretty decent set of players, and it's actually, I'd say in the server, it's overperformed what I expected. Jensen, looks pretty good, EDG.
I mean, I think this EDG team is just a pure downgrade across the board from what they had last year, right? But it probably solved some of the interpersonal issues. It probably solved some of the motivation issues.
I mean, you can't lose Scout and Viper and stuff like that and then like upgrade really probably, right? Realistically.
Right.
You know?
So this is a team that I think that I do not expect them to do like lots of damage internationally, but this is a team that could very well squeak in as the 4th seed at Worlds or something like that, right? Some of these, it looks like Wave War, JDG, and TS are 1, 2, 3. Then number 4 is a little bit more up there. EDG might just be able to squeak in as number 4 with what they have, because I think that what they have is a little bit stylistically coherent. The only one that I have a concern about is Ale, right? I do not think that this is a team that you want to be playing. That Ale is not the right fit for this team. Because you probably want to pair Ale with more of like the map control type of mid laners, like with the Doan B type, with Rookie, something like that. Both was more of a mage there, very stable, very solid. It's a little bit like Scout in that sense, but it's you have seen the voice comps, right? Where Ali is just saying that, oh, I want to go in, I want to kill them and things like that. And Mako's time, don't go, and he just goes in it anyways, right? So that's my big concern for EDG. I think that this team has got very clear downsides to it as compared to last year, and but it's still a decent roster across the board. Can they make it? Possibly. I think they've claimed some big scalps as well, right? So far
yeah,
this season.
absolutely.
So that's a team that's the same as LNG. If you throw, they will catch, but I do not expect them to be the ones very proactively creating ways to say that, yep, this is the way that League of Legends should be played, and setting the paradigm as to this is how people should be thinking about the game, or this is how people should be playing the game.
So, EDG. Well, if you're going to lose Viper, you can't really replace him with anyone, unless you're going to go get like Brûleur or like Gumayashi if he's like brains attached or something, or Jackie Love, but generally he's not that replaceable, or maybe Deft. Leave is a very good player. I do watch a lot of the LDL. Basically, one of the jokes is like how many of like the best ADCs are like Vipers, like Water Boys, or like
right, okay,
just like learning from them, and like because it's just an unending. Because even though like Leave's now in the main team, their new ADC is also good, by the way.
Right.
Like the next EDG young ADC is also good. There's been a lot of them throughout the years. There was like 3 of them on EDG's Wise bench. I think he's like he'll be like a good player. He's not Viper. It's a decent replacement. I think Fofo's one of the better like fits you could have got. Obviously, like if you're getting rid of Scout, it's just easy to say, why did you not get Knight? Why did you not get Rookie? If you have to go and get the problem with going and getting an LDL mid laner compared to an LDL ADC is the burden in the LPL particularly of like what you're responsible for is so much higher at mid lane. For example, like Mako, I'm like 99% sure is controlling like the bot lane, how they're playing, who's doing the matchups, right? But if you're an LDL mid laner, there isn't a guy being like, oh, by the way, this is how you play mid lane. Oh, by the way, this is how you're going to like control side lanes. Oh, by the way, this is how we're going to like set up for TP flanks at Dragon. These are kind of things that, your support player can teach you or tell you what to do, but they have to be a lot more like intuitive to you. You have to design them yourself and know to do them without being like prompt. It's a much higher role. Fofo's good. I think Fofo's a very, very good player. I think he's like somewhat downtrodden. He's made like a pact with the devil where like his like somehow Fofo's junglers are always just like bad or like the biggest coin costers ever when they play with Fofo. Who is it? Lian? Yeah, Lian was his old jungler who was like the people like meme the idea of the LPL where like, oh, they just like flip every game. No, Lian literally flipped the game before level like 2 happened every single game for like 2 consecutive slips. And that was literally just what he done all the time. And he would just flip every single situation. And he just loved variants. And that was like Fofo's teammate for like years. Then he got on the... Who's it he had on the BLG roster? It was the Keire jungler that played with...
Meteor, maybe? Was it?
No, it wasn't Meteor. It was not. It wasn't Zunzhou or Wizhou. I can't remember what his name. Anyway, he went from being one of the best Keire junglers in the LPL to being like one of these worst splits ever. And now he's got JJ. Where JJ, I think...
In theory, it was Meteor. That was who we had on BLG. Oh, you meant the other one. You meant Weiwei. The second time he was on BLG. Yeah, okay. There you go.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. It had Weiwei, where Weiwei just like had a complete collapse. I'm really curious what you think of like JJ so far, because I have no idea. I think JJ was a lot like Malrang, kind of where when he was inside his like meta of like champions, like Jarvan, I know that's like coming back through and all that, he looks super, super sick. And when the burden of primary engage isn't solely on him, he looks a lot better. But now a lot of like engage is front loaded into jungle because of the enchanters. So like I see JJ like struggling. How do you think, guys? Like,
I'll just say on that one, like obviously people will know I'm primarily obviously thinking about this game where he fucking gapped Kanavi, but like he is one of the craziest, like in English we'd say Jekyll and Hyde, Jensen from the famous novel. Like his normal game could just be so average, but then his actual like peak level, like you saw at that Worlds, is fucking amazing. Like at that Worlds, he genuinely blew my mind. Every playoff series, I was like, surely it's going to stop at some point. Like, how's he doing this? And And remember, guys, he was only against Prime fucking Canyon in the final. Like, are we going to pretend like he just played some chopped liver? He was playing someone who everyone was desperately ready, by the way, the second he won Game 5 to like crown the greatest jungler to ever play League of Legends, except JJ turned up. That's real. Like, that story is fucking incredible, because of all the EDG players, he was the one where it's like, dude, he won Worlds. But, you know, like Carson and them have never won Worlds. Like, what the fuck is this? So I think I'd be interested to see what Jensen thinks, because I don't get it, mate. Like I say, he can be so average and then just the level can just jump up.
I think that stability is a very big part of the way that he plays, right? So the Kanavi game where he was gapping Kanavi, it started off because Kanavi went for this very unnecessary invade onto him. Then that's how he got the first kill from that point. And he's the type of player where, from the way that I watch him, he's a very pain by numbers kind of guy as a jungler. So he's not going to go for like your Karsa type of plays where he's trying to create these very crazy chaotic scenarios, but he just does what the team needs him to do. And sometimes that's all you really need to do as a jungler, right? And then you build that around the rest of your supporting class. It's just that it's a little bit unfortunate that the supporting class this time is no longer Viper and Scout, right? He's working with Fofo and Leaf instead. So that's the only thing where he's still gonna look good. If you do dumb things against him, he's going to punish you and he's going to gap you accordingly. But I think that this is not going to be like I said at the start, this is not going to be a very high expectations year for EDG.
Yes. By the way, the only thing keeping this team together, by the way, is Mako. I actually don't think this team works without Mako, because if I'll say that before there, like JJ at Worlds looked so much better when Mako was on primary engage and he was following up Mako's sure thing plays, right? And now all the burden for the primary engage is on JJ. But I still feel like when I'm seeing the videos that Mako's calming it. You know what I mean? Like Mako's like calling like the Baron turns, what was it called? The dragon angles, like when to like move off the objective and stuff. They're little snippets and they're not like whole games and stuff. But I don't know, he just looks like the most important piece on JDG for me. I would like to touch on Ali because he's probably one of my favourite players. He's like the next iteration of Flandre a little bit for me, which is funny because they replaced him.
I do have one thing to say. One last thing to say about JJ is just that because he has that style where you never know when he's going to be amazing, when he's not. The thing with a player like that, Jensen, is you could wrap yourself up into knots trying to be JJ, but whatever. You see what I did? It was the joke on. It was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu BJJ. But whatever, you'll get it later. It's all good. It was all good. It's all good. Whatever. They're not all land.
I thought it was referencing something else there.
No. Okay. It's all good. It's a bit deep. That. It's a bit deep. Go on then. Give me your thoughts then.
So I think Flandre was like a strong side super carry player, Snake franchise player. He decided he wanted to have a trophy cabinet at the end of his career.
True.
So
he was like, you know what? I agreed to play Graves only every game till I win Worlds. Basically,
he looked at the pile of money and then he looked at the trophy cabinet and he's like, okay, we've got the money. We now need the trophy cabinet. He's like, EDG. I'm going to get carried now. Okay, and he went and played weak side to a variety of different levels on EDG. Congratulations, Flandre, you got the big one, right?
Yep.
And so they replaced him with Ali. But Ali is basically Flandre, but he forgot that he's playing weak side. And that's the problem, where what you were saying is it's like he's looking for like angles that don't exist. He's looking to carry in what I call overplay situations. In like chess, where like when you make a move, it actually puts you in a losing position. Ali's doing that to his team all the time. By being active and proactive and looking for plays, he's actually losing his team like setups. He's getting chunked before objectives. He's like losing his role responsibility, his dynamic. Ali, I used to praise him very highly. It was a player Kelsey Moser like pointed out to me of how he would independently be able to control his wave so that Tarzan could go and do like other jungle things all across the map. And he's still very, very good at that. But right now, the game is in a way where that's just that one aspect of your game isn't enough. There's other expectations of you right now as like players, and each singular person's role responsibility in League of Legends is actually quite high. And so Ali really looks like a player who doesn't understand when he's on certain champion picks what he's actually there to be doing, like what he's responsible for, what he's covering. It's like what people kind of like meme like NA players or like folk were laughing at Rux when he was playing Nautilus, but he should have been playing it defensively, but instead Rux was engaging like every single fight. That's what Ali's doing. Where like he's like on like a carry champ and he's sitting looking for these like backline angles when actually he actually has to be holding the front line for his team. It's a very strange like iteration. I don't know, with a player with those type of problems and they don't look like they're going to be getting ironed out that quickly, where is your upper limit with Ali? You know what I mean? Like, where does it lie? It just generally, because I actually agree with your assessment. They look like the team that is going to attempt to snipe into the upper brackets, but could generally place lower.
I'll also give you one last angle on EDG, which I know is a Jensen angle. He just forgot to mention it himself, which is they did bring back Kenju, their coach, who was the coach that won Worlds for them and then changed to RNG and won MSI with RNG. So if you don't know, this guy's a mega tenured coach. So if there's anyone who can work with these players, this was the guy that was working with the team in 2021 where everyone had all these extra next level performances and came together the right way. So that's an interesting angle. We'll see what he does with this squad, what he can work with them. Right, obviously at this point in time, we'll do a couple of other teams because I agree with you, Jensen. We can go down to 10, but some of these are definitely fraudulent. Like, if we're being honest, like we'll just start with Thunder Talk. Let's try that. Go on then, Jensen. Give me your thought. Obviously, look, there's a few players people know, but like I just can't believe this is going to be a top team. Like this is like first round playoff exit, surely.
I mean, Thunder Talk, they'll make playoffs, but they're in the same tier as OMG, right? They have to win. They're in the top 10 right now, but this team, they just don't have the quality of players to make it. They play the two-lane style, I would say, pretty decently. So it's a team that I keep an eye out on once in a while. And I think that their setups and objectives are fine. This is a well-coached team in general, but they're not going to do damage, right? Just by sheer name value itself. This is the one with Yukal in the mid lane, right? Thunder Talk?
Yep. And Beishang, yep. Beishang, rather.
So, that's another Thunder Talk. Like IG is probably the more interesting one to talk about here.
By the way, just as a random aside, because you actually might know this because it's the deep lore, Keire, do you remember on all those shows where for some mad reason, because it's what made that KT Super Team win, LS like overhyped the fuck out of Yukal when they brought him in to replace Pawn. And I told him and Loco at the time, slow your motherfucking roll. Like that guy is so obviously carried. Like you just play like a mage and just like fucking CS mid. And he had like all the, it's like the joke is, you know that episode with Dom where like we figured out the KT Super Team was actually like the other four players with the goats at their fucking role. Like he had just the goats at the role in an active team. And spoiler, if you look at the rest of his career, he was like okay on Freaks, and he's just an alright player. He's just never some super talent. That's one of the craziest ones where I think his eye test missed, because normally Yelis has a really good eye test. Like that was one where I don't know why he just missed so hard on that one, mate, because he's never been that impressive a player to me.
Yeah, it was that just weird like bias like LS has sometimes where it was like Caps is coming off like the summer of 2018. Literally,
I think he did say Yukal was better or something, didn't he? There you go, you're right.
He said Yukal is like so much better. And then again with everything that LS, if you had to go watch the stream, like it breaks down why.
Oh, he had some points, like, right? Okay.
He had some points, and then it's like, but you're still mental, right?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah, don't worry about that.
You're still mental, mate. But anyway. What's funny, if I was to tell you, right, okay, T-tier 6 in LPL, right, okay, this is juicy, right? Who's carrying them? Well, Hong Fong must be just the dude, right? Well, no, he's not that guy.
By the way, there's another example, fans, right? Listen, the worst part there of the LPL isn't even when people get Narmade, when they're actually like a really good player, they don't get it. It's when they do like Huafeng, where you guys think he's like Uzi High, and he like had one fucking tournament ever that was like sick. That was it. That was the one ever. Like, nothing else after that. Like,
it's like he is actually like a sick player, right?
Oh, his skills are clearly very good. Yeah. He's fucked up in the head though, isn't he?
He's constantly straddling that like madness of like 65th best ADC or maybe 4th best ADC in the LPL, right? I don't know what happened this split, by the way. Oh my god, like this guy's doing like anti-damage sometimes. Like there's genuine like sections of the games where I'm just like, it's like I would rather have LP than this guy in some of these situations. Like, has he been drinking from his own water fountain? Like, what is going on with Hong Fong here? Like, this is tragic. But the upside is, in general, I would agree with Jensen. This is one of those teams where somehow, with two Koreans on it, managed to like piece together a regimented unit that all play towards like set goals and set condition. They're not actually like them, but they like remind me of like Mad Lions in the EU, if you want to make it an equivalent of like where they're actually like well coached, but like the player level is tragic in like some levels, and there's nothing you can do about that. They are who they are, but it's nice to see that a team does actually like listen to like coaching principles and do use their actual brains to win games. But as Jensen said, overall, they're not that interested in a team. They're going to be a footnote and most likely in LPL history in general. A team that, like, as a stat, when you say, like, Knight won 15 out of his most LPL, like, 15 of his LPL playoff games, they were, like, fucking game 13. Like, that's where I kind of see them being.
Yes.
Watch them win the LPL after me saying this.
And then similarly, right, I feel like the narrative is a little bit different if we do Invictus Game of the Jensen, because isn't it more like, right, they are a bit fraudulent, their record was obviously way too good, but at least with them, they have like some of these are like up-and-coming players, right? It's an interesting mix of players. Like, there's like some potential here, right?
Oh, I mean, IG, they're coached by Joker, and then he used to be teammates with Dove all the way back in the day. So the question here is, the way that IG is doing things right now, they're opening the book of dark cards, right? They're coming up all these interesting things. They're doing like these Raptor to Wolves type of clears. They're doing these things where YS Cam's like just running into the front jungle level 1, and they're cheesing out a lot.
That guy is a fucking meme as well. Why? Who even is that guy? Like, some of the characters in the LPL are like, they are out of an anime, mate. How do these guys get in the league? I know.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for this team, right? If this were an anime episode, IG would be the protagonist of it, right? Because this is like a monster of the week type of thing, where every week they open up their book. It's like, hey, what interesting cheese are we gonna play, right? The StarCraft analogy is like, This is when SOS won the BlizzCon, right? Where he just knocked them to rush every single game. But the problem with that is that you want to be doing these sort of things when you're approaching the playoffs. This is when you then dig into the deep book of dark cards, and then you pull out the lane swap, you pull out all these sort of things and things like that. Even then, the way that they're executing on these cheeses and strategies, I feel that there's a lot of issues. Like, it feels like this is something that makes sense on paper, right? Okay, let's try to punish 369 because he's on Camille. Let's go for a lane swap, right? They don't really understand what is the dynamic that a lane swap creates, right? The lane swap creates a dynamic where now the opponent mid laner will be ahead of everybody else because everybody else is sharing EXP in the lanes and things like that. Your jungle is not farming at a very efficient manner because he then has to babysit and potentially look for the dive and all these other things as well. And then you have a Ryze in the mid lane who generally wants to be moving, and then now he's going to be stuck in mid lane against a Yone in that scenario. So it feels like this is something that they looked at it, they just read the title in the Book of Dark Arts, but they didn't really try to understand or execute properly onto it as well. Even when they did the whole like jungle to jungle these style things, it's like you can see that this is a coach who has read the deep lore of League of Legends, right? Ways to cheat games and ways to win games from opponents. But he didn't read the entire study. He didn't read the details and things like that. So the general idea is when you do Raptors into Wolves or Raptors into Raptors, you want to be there for the spawn of the level 3 camps itself. But you still see Gideon, he's still farming the level 1 camps instead, and then the opponent jungle gets access to those level 3 camps. This is the game against EDG that I'm thinking about, right? IG versus EDG. They still won that at the end of the day, but when you watch these executions, it's like great ideas. You guys have to know that these are the theoretical follow-ups, right? This is the way that you're supposed to do it if your opponents respond in particular ways as well. So you're a very entertaining team to watch. They're a very interesting team to watch, especially with the top lane and all that kind of jazz as well. But at a certain point of time as well, because of the way that they're executing on these things as well, the coaching capital that Joker has with this team is going to run out, right? You can only tell your players, let's lane swap, especially when you have a player like West Cam. You're going to play Sun and we're going to lane swap this game. You only can do that many times in a season before the players say that, okay, you're full of shit, we're not listening to you anymore. Let me just play what I'm good at playing, right? Which is the Fiora, the Jax, and all these other things as well. And you do not want to be in that position as a coach.
Basically, right, this IG team is just, first of all, if I was to go through like the formation of it, like Wink, remember that ADC player? Yeah, he's now the support. It's like, okay,
isn't that mad? Yeah,
yeah.
Because people are going to see the name and go, I remember him. It's like, not in this role, you don't. Not in this.
By the way, by certain analysts, touted as one of the greatest mechanical like talents of his like of his class. By the way,
enough.
Like supposedly very very good like mechanically. I was never impressed with him, but like there was a lot of hype like around like Wink, right? But now he's a support player. We'll see how that one goes. Then you've got a top laner who, if he played in almost any other area in the past 3 years, he would be useless because he's an Aurelia, Camille, Fiora 3-trick. You should know me. And there's another player that's the same.
And also, think about this, right? think of the champion pool that he just listed there. You can imagine he's either carries the fuck out the game on those champions or shits the bed. And then that has to be, your name is so memeable. It is insane. Like almost anything he does in the game, his name can be made to fit with like, that's why I say it's like the idea that's who replaced the Shy. It's like they know how to cast the players in the play of the LPL, as it were. They know the central casting is really good. I've got to give them credit.
Well, it was really funny because someone messaged me saying like, "Oh, the IG are like picking up the Aurelia Fiora Camille one track."
Sounds
like,
like, sick when you say it like that, doesn't it? Like, oh, no, brilliant! It's the next to Shy, yeah, brilliant.
I thought it was another player called Solo Kill, right?
Oh, right.
I didn't think there was any chance of it being You Should Know Me because he streams on like Twitch and he's not like on like the, you know what I mean, like the LPL like streamer deals and all that. I was like, there's no way You Should Know Me. So I was like, wait, there's another one. There's two of these guys out there.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so mad. Basically what Jensen said is like a very good like caricature of them. They've got like these like silver bullets in their revolver, but eventually like the revolver's gonna like misfire, and eventually the players are gonna take the revolver off the coach and put it to his head and tell him to like draft properly. Because it's just these like it's so true, Jensen. These are like the strats you use to like snipe in BO5 series, like not win regular season games. Like what? Like it looks like they've done their playoff prep. Now.
These are the drafts you do when you've already lost like the first two games. You know, if you play a straight up game, it's over already. And you just try just throw anything at them, just do some shit they can't possibly be prepared for. But yeah, the problem is like, you can't be anything left. Like, if people don't know, the LPL season is so long, guys. Like, we're not even vaguely done yet. We're like halfway through. So, like, there's no, you're right. It is literally impossible they can get to playoffs. And because the problem is, with these wins that they snipe, this is why it's going to be unsatisfying. The wins they snipe mean they're probably going to sneak into playoffs, but then just get immediately eliminated. Yeah, it's exactly like we were talking about. So, it's just going to be unsatisfying, right? Obviously, the last two teams we haven't talked about is we partially addressed Billy Gaming and Rare Atom, right? Let's do Billy Gaming first because it's a more interesting one, right? This is a team where obviously, like, the name is part of the problem. It's like, it's just never been a big name. If people don't know, Uzi did briefly play for them, but no one gives a shit. That was the season when he like was coming back and then didn't, sort of. So spoiler, it wasn't that great. But in the past, they've actually had a whole bunch of lineups. They've done a very interesting job every year reinventing this team and going totally different angle. They've had a bunch of different Koreans. Most of them are actually pretty decent. Some of them might even know. Obviously, one of them was called Zeke even. And then in this current lineup, though, I think it's a really bizarre lineup. Like, this is one of the ones where, right, this is where, unfortunately, despite all the lovely things people said about Yagao, he clearly wasn't that highly rated by the people in the LPL, including the other players. Like, he got left out on this big... Like, the guy's won the LPL a bunch of times. It's been bloody, like, World's playoffs. Like, hey, how did he end up on this team? You know what I mean? Like, why was there not a better team for Yagao than this?
And the scary thing is, like, I don't think Yagao should have had to have dropped to this point.
Seems unfair, right? What's he done wrong, you know?
Yeah, but the problem is like, Yagao... not in an LPL metric, but in a Western metric, right? He was like so overrated by like some people.
He was, of course.
That, like he needed to drop down to this level for people to see where their analysis had went wrong in evaluating players. Because I'm not joking, there has barely been a day in this guy's life where he's breathed, where he was better than Knight. Yet people came out of the LPL playoffs thinking this guy was like better than Knight. I was like, yeah, he was better than Knight for like one series, right? But there was like 15 other games played, and Knight was smurfing them. The other thing, but like, and the thing is like, Yagao has got such a real nice like style. He knows exactly who he is. Yeah. He's got a very solid champion pool. He picked up the Azir. Everyone said for years that Yagao will never be able to play Azir. And the problem is what folk haven't realized is the minute you put the weaker pieces around Yagao, he begins to like falter because even though he's giving them like these winning scenarios, they're being fumbled out of his like control, and then he isn't like that elite player where he can just like carry the situations. I would say he's actually probably playing a little bit worse than he usually does individually, to be fair to him, to be honest. And his like laning is causing a little bit of problems, I think, for Zun in general. But I was really surprised that he ended up being on this BLG lineup, just generally. I felt a little bit like sorry for him, apart from the fact that he's got Ben, and Ben's been super legit. On you go, Jensen.
To be fair, BLG has always been the analogy here is they have the vitality of China, right? They have the vitality of the LPL. This is a team that always has money, but they just can't seem to attract the players. They can't they can't really ever really piece the offseason together, right? Even last year, when they tried to do the super team with Fofo and everything, it just fell apart. And this is something that's been happening consistently with BLG. I wouldn't be surprised if BLG they went in there and said, okay, we have been, and then let's try to get Yakao, and then they weren't able to attract top talent in the other roles after that, or for some reason, despite having a large budget, despite being willing to spend and all that kind of stuff as well. So I wouldn't really say that people join BLG with the expectation of this being a mid to lower tier team. The promise is generally that I would imagine is that when people join BLG is that, hey, we want to make a championship contending roster. This is the team that was willing to bet on Uzi making a return last year after all, right? And they had all the redundancies put into place for the kind of things as well. It's just that for BLG, like the same way, like in the same way that Vitality, things have never really panned out for them. It just hasn't really, none of the plans have really seemed to work, right? And this year is definitely not the magnum opus, but I have to say that from a GMing perspective, I really think that there's some very clear stylistic mismatches in terms of what they wanted here.
Why have they got on?
Yeah, right.
Why the fuck have they got on? Why is he here?
I mean, on is one of my biggest mysteries in the LPL. I do not know how this guy keeps finding jobs on top LPL teams. You know, it's like, okay, sure, they brought him up in Suning and things like that. He replaced Squadron and those kind of things. But at some point of time, people have to realize that this is a player that he's got so many holes in his gameplay, plays the same below par and all the kind of things as well. It's generally looking very good in the mid game. Right?
he's this iteration, this generation's Baolan, by the way. It's a fucking mystery how he gets to play with all these like top orgs, by the way. It's unfathomable. Him and LP should be in a bot lane together. Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's how bad they are.
It's always support players you notice that are the ones that just keep getting hired. Like, it was the same with that Yunjia guy. Like, oh, are you even still in the LPL? What is this? What the fuck is this? It's mad, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
Yunjia, death forever. I'm just a dedicated hater of that guy. I don't actually know him, obviously. I don't know if he's got a cool character, but he's just such a fucking inter as a player, though.
Also an ADC player beforehand, Thorin.
That's so insane, isn't it? So insane, isn't it? I know. Meanwhile, like I say, Mako and Ming just sit there every year, like, please bring me a World Championship roster. It's like, flip a coin. No, you didn't get one this year, sorry. It's like, oh, well, I'll try again in 2 years. Like, bloody hell. It's mad, isn't it?
A rookie mid and a rookie jungler this year, Ming. It's like, and by the way, if you lose to EDG in 5 games, you're a failure.
I know. It's mental, isn't it?
Sorry, you were saying, Jensen.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, I'm just saying that this BLG team is probably the result of all season that went wrong for the team, right? Yakao and Bin is like, okay, we got 2 great
pieces.
Yeah,
that's some good pieces. Yeah.
Just didn't pan out for them. I think Jun is not the right type of jungler that Yakao wants. Yakao probably wants somebody a lot more like, if you pair with Jia or with Karsa,
yes,
I think
that would be perfect. Well. Yes.
Right.
They could have also got what's his name? Fofo's old mid laner, Weiwei, or the mid laner that played for Brave in WE. That like style of like mid laner.
You mean jungler?
Yeah, the jungler that played with Brave in WE. I can't remember. Is it Black? I can't remember his name.
PH1, the guy who's playing for FPX.
Yeah, the guy.
You don't want that guy. That guy's terrible.
No. That like style of player, he's bad now. Like he's awful now.
That style of player is it?
Yeah, that style of player is like what like Yaga would like would be much better on this BLG than what they got with Zun. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. There's only one team left.
They did win the Demacia Cup, right? They did win the Demacia Cup, so sure. maybe this BLG it's the same thing. They're not in the top 3. And we'll just have to see how the rest of the season pans out, right, for them. Maybe in summer they make some roster changes, which I wouldn't be surprised that they do. But I think a change to support jungle would definitely help them out a lot.
Okay. Right, what about Rare Atom then, the last team? Go, you start me on this one, Keire. What do you think about Rare Atom?
I don't even know who's on this team.
No, mate, right, okay. So, basically, Rare Atom is like a social experiment of like, how many of
it's the aforementioned Lane, if people don't know that. He mentioned from the IG days. So he's on the team for start off.
So it's basically like, okay, can we get like all the rejects from all the team that
Southwind, remember when Jackie Love and them left? He's back.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cube's the top laner, by the way, like the guy that was just famously like ending an entire franchise at Vici Gaming before.
Oh, this is like some Suicide Squad shit. Absolutely, I'm with you. Like, it's just all the people who should have been kicked out or just in a team together. Like, okay.
And then you've got Strive, who, like, is, I don't know, was one of these guys that basically was like talked about as being like a talent from the LPL and he'd be able to like save a franchise, but he ended up playing for the exact same. He was on like a VG when VG didn't, and so Rare Atom ended up with him, and he's been their like franchise player since like 2021. But I think this team and how they've been winning games is insane, and it's basically just what I was talking about before with Lian flips. It's just Lian flips where they're just turning the aggression up to like 3,000%. And just like going Tora on enemy teams and hoping to like catch like ints and like gaps in the team. This is basically one of these teams that in spring they'll have like an okay win-loss record because they'll basically snipe people's like bad mistakes. But when the teams become more refined by summer, this could be like one of the bottom teams in LPL if like nothing changes. When the game gets a lot more like solid and like regimented and people like communicating better and things like that, because I have no fucking idea how this team is doing it. Maybe the coaches are gods, but I don't know. It's insane. It's actually so insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only one time Raritan was ever good, and that was when they had I don't recall who the mid laner was. So was Fofo playing for Raritan at one point of time? And then they had iBoy in the bot lane, and then they were playing lots of Tristana Jinx, and they just played for Drake stacking. They just hard played the Drake stacking every single game with mid and bot prior. And then Cubus in the top lane, he will play Gnar, he could on 20 CS, and then he just exists in the game. If I recall, that was the only time where this team looked like they had any chance to do anything in the LPL itself. And this roster definitely isn't it. I mean, there's too many teams to watch in the LPL, there's too many games to watch. Raritan is on my list of like, if this team is playing, I'm probably not watching.
I literally only caught them because I really like OMG's top laner. I can always forget his name, Shanji, right? I was like, okay, I'll watch Shanji like play against Cube and like annihilate Cube for a laugh. I was like, joke's on me. Today Cube's gonna annihilate Shanji, and I'm just like, okay. And they're like, they've got, I think they've got like a 50% or just under 50% win rate from series wins. They're one of the teams that's like massively gained, obviously, from strength of schedule. I would actually put this team in the bucket. If this team actually ends up making playoffs, it'll have just been through like madness or like LPL teams getting them on the second game of a 2-week and not prepping for them, and like players going on like holiday or going out with girlfriends or something, and then like not giving a fuck, because I think this team's atrocious. I'd put it in the bin, restart. Like,
no, the basic problem this team has is, unlike some of the other squads, they don't even have the one where you just got the player on luck in the offseason who's way better than they should be. Like, everyone's just like below average or average at best. That's the problem. And we're not even hating when we say that. Like obviously, fucking the Cube guy's okay. At least he knows his fucking game. The Strive guy, I can see what you mean. He had like a little bit of potential. He's shown some games where he put it this way, he clearly thinks he knows what champions he's strong on. He's willing to pick them. Look, I'll always be a fucking Southwind hater because I thought that period on IG was just shit, and I don't even know why they made that bot lane. It was just such a waste of. Basically the problem is I can't objectively analyze people like that because I do feel like you wasted my goat rookies just another year of his fucking career, and Leon's also in the team. So there's another offender for that one too. Like, the joke with Leon was everyone used to flame the fuck out of Ning, if you remember, like as if he was carried. But the second Ning left, even when Ning was like semi-washed, everyone was like, please come back, Ning. And we all just pretended Leon never existed. Remember, he just came back like right in the playoffs of that like Worlds or whatever, like, oh, I'm back, guys. And everyone was like, it probably won't work, but just come on in because Leon ain't working, bro. That ain't the move for our team, I know.
Yeah, there's genuinely no one actually quite like. I talk about Malrang as like a high variance like jungler, and like I know Jensen, you're like critical of him, but there's genuinely no one quite like Lian. It is literal just chaos and random chaos. There is no like plan to it, no structure to it. It is just mindless aggression, and it's like kind of interesting to watch as like some sort of like Elephant Man experiment. But then you begin to realize he does this every single game for 5 years, no matter who his teammates are. I don't know.
You know, Leia really embodies the whole like, I hope they didn't see me.
And there you go. Yes.
Right. He like flashes over Baron Wall, and it's like, I don't think that's the play, mate. And then farm Krugs and stuff. It's like,
no, we have the same concept in CSGO, where obviously in that one it's even worse. Like, obviously, if you get lucky and it's on any of the 9 other people, the guy doesn't see you like miss the easy shot. But the joke is, it's always on you if you're the pro and you miss like the one where you lined up behind the guy and it's like the easy. If you miss that 100% of the time, the camera was on you and everyone's like, "What the hell? He's garbage." And you're like, "What? I can't get away with one of these." No, it's bad. It's a bad state of affairs. And spoiler, here's all you need to know. Here's the last word on Rare Atom, right? All you need to know is this. I'm with Keire. I've always thought the craziest thing, especially, like LCK is bad for having some sub who comes in who's like, this guy's fucking amazing. What was he doing on the bench? The LPL's way worse because, as he says, they have motherfuckers every year who are in LDL who, no joke, are probably like top 30 ADC players in the world, like talent-wise and ability. And all of these guys should just, you'd think, would just walk into like a top team the next year. So all that needs to be said is this. I bet people watching this show, unless they are the most hardcore fan, you can't even right now name the ADC of Rare Atom. You don't even know his name. No one does. No one knows this motherfucker's name. I do because I looked it up now, but even I'd forgotten what it was. So that's all you need to know. In a region like is overflowing with ADC talent. Like, as you see, the joke is, again, you know, like with Faker, all the people who are like his understudy, his mid lane, were actually cracked and turned out to be good. It's the same with all the Uzi I and Jackie fucking backups. They're all fucking cracked players because you know he's going to come out the games like Abel. Loads of them fucking showed skills year back. So how they end up, anytime a team ends up with a nobody, it's like, what is going on with the fucking off season? Come on.
Here's how crazy it is. Like, so in last year, I did like a list of like the best LDL players, and like Leave was at the top, and then like a bracket of his own, right?
Okay.
But below him at ADC, and I can't say his name, it's the IG Young ADC. His name's like Zhao Yuje or something. You maybe know how to say it, Jensen, but I'm Scottish. I've got no fucking chance, right?
Okay.
This guy spent 3 years in LDL now, by the way. 3 years. He's been playing since 2020. And that's how long this man's going to sat in the benches. And he is like, even just if you were to look at stats, every single stat you would want is like off the charts. And he's just sitting in LDL, just wiping his arse with all the other players when he's just miles better. And you've got absolute fucking bums playing in the LPL. That's why there is something going on. I don't know what it is. I've never had any inside info. There's something goes on with these LPL and LDL GMs.
Yes.
That, unless it's Aaron at EDG, who's just got like a conveyor belt of fucking talent coming in, everyone else just fucks it. Everyone else.
Yes.
So I don't know, but that's just an example that I'm aware of.
Oh no, and the maddest thing is, to complete the story, the way they fuck it is, you will have a team, like I say, who'll have like Uzi I, then like 2 people at ADC behind him who are good. But the joke is, when they are playing the LPL, it won't be for like RNG, it'll be for like some other squad. And you're like, why'd you just raise all those sick players and not even use them yourself? Like what? Like, they always come in from other team, that's the maddest part. So yeah.
That'll be the joke. That dude will literally fucking replace Assam and fucking
There you go. There you go. Exactly. There you go.
That'll be it.
I work hard to make sure I get mine, but no one can do it all on their own. And that's why everyone needs a support group. And so I have my Patreon community. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask a question in one of these monthly AMAs. Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming guests are? Or maybe you want to take part in one of those long discussions where you can help set the table of the topics and join in with other like-minded people. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link below, as the following people who I very much appreciate did: Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Keire, Bot Pounder 420, Torin, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Tosh, and always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion.